In every corner of our world, beneath layers of dust, stone, and forgotten time, lie objects that should not exist, artifacts that defy logic, challenge history, and whisper of stories we were never meant to hear. These discoveries raise unsettling questions. Who built them? Why were they abandoned? And what knowledge vanished with the civilizations that left them behind? Tonight, we step into the dim frontier between fact and impossibility, examining relics that remain stubbornly unexplained despite decades of study. So take a breath, steady your curiosity, and let's begin our journey into the most bizarre archaeological mysteries still waiting for answers. In the windswept plains of northern Afghanistan, where the desert meets the foothills of ancient trade routes, a quiet stillness settles over the earth. It was here, beneath a landscape that had seen empires rise and vanish, that one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century emerged. The Bactrian gold, thousands of intricately crafted ornaments, coins, and ceremonial objects, lay hidden for nearly 2 millennia, sealed beneath the burial mounds of a forgotten elite. Each piece shimmered with the unmistakable glow of ancient mastery, yet carried designs and symbols that seemed to belong to many cultures at once. The treasure first came to light in 1978, when Soviet-Afghan archaeologists excavated the site of Tilia Tepe, the Golden Hill. What they unearthed defied easy explanation. 6 richly appointed tombs, belonging to nomadic nobles from the 1st century BCE, yielded over 20,000 gold artifacts. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Delicate filigree, repoussé patterns, turquoise inlays, and iconography bridging the worlds of Greece, Persia, China, India, and the steppe tribes. These were not merely grave goods. They were a cultural crossroads cast into metal. From what we can verify, the individuals buried here were likely part of a nomadic confederation, sometimes linked to the Yuezhi or early Kushans, groups known for their mobility, diplomacy, and ability to absorb influences from surrounding civilizations. The artifacts support this narrative. Greek-style medallions mingle with Scythian animal motifs. Chinese lacquerware appears beside Indian-inspired imagery. It is as if the tombs served as a time capsule for a uniquely hybrid world, one shaped by the swirling currents of the Silk Road. Yet for all its historical grounding, the Bactrian gold carries an element of quiet enigma. Many pieces seem almost too sophisticated for a people presumed to be itinerant herders. How did such a group acquire or create objects of such refinement? Were they truly nomads, or something more complex? Merchants, artisans, political intermediaries whose story has been overshadowed by louder empires? Some scholars suggest that the treasure reflects a transitional moment when cultures were merging at unprecedented speed. Others argue that the gold hints at networks far deeper and more entangled than traditional history acknowledges. A small belt buckle might depict a scene recognizable in Greek mythology, while a neighboring plaque holds symbols closer to the shamanic traditions of the Eurasian steppe. These juxtapositions provoke questions about the flow of ideas and whether the world of ancient Central Asia was far more interconnected than we once believed. There are pieces, too, that resist easy categorization, objects whose symbolism appears unfamiliar, or whose techniques do not clearly align with known examples from surrounding regions. Take, for instance, certain amulets featuring stylized hybrids, part feline, part bird, part something unidentifiable. Are these simply artistic flourishes, or echoes of belief systems not yet fully traced through the archaeological record? And what of the gold diadems, with their delicately suspended leaves that tremble with even the faintest breath of air? Ornaments so meticulously engineered that their closest parallels appear thousands of miles apart. Were these the results of local experimentation, or the signatures of travelers and artisans who moved silently across continents long before their paths were recorded? As the treasure was studied, another layer of mystery emerged, one not rooted in antiquity, but in the chaos of modern conflict. For years, the fate of the Bactrian gold was uncertain. Rumors circulated. Had it been looted, smuggled out of the country, melted down, or lost forever? The truth was stranger and quieter. Hidden away in secret vaults by Afghan museum staff, the treasure survived wars and regime changes through a mixture of caution, secrecy, and perhaps a little luck. When it resurfaced in the early 2000s, scholars were stunned not just by its beauty, but by the fact that it had endured at all. This interlude in the gold's history has deepened its aura. The treasure seems to move through periods of darkness and revelation, always resurfacing with new questions attached. Today, researchers continue to examine the techniques used in its creation: microscopic tool marks, metal composition, stylistic anomalies, to understand the world that produced it. Some propose that the nomads of Tepe were key intermediaries in a global network that stretched from the Mediterranean to East Asia. Others wonder whether lost migrations or undocumented dynasties passed through this region, leaving only hints of their influence in objects buried beneath the earth. More speculative theories hover at the edges of the conversation, not embraced by mainstream scholarship, but not fully dismissed either. Could the treasure reflect contact with cultures whose written histories have not survived? Could these objects belong to a lineage of craftsmanship passed from one generation of traveling artisans to another, leaving their mark across continents? Or do they simply demonstrate that ancient societies, like modern ones, were capable of surprising complexity, far more creative and interconnected than the simplified narratives we inherit? Walking through a modern exhibition of the Bactrian gold, one feels a sense of quiet tension between certainty and the unknown. Here lies a collection that can be dated, measured, categorized, yet still refuses to yield a complete story. The faces carved into pendants stare back without explanation. The patterns etched into bracelets seem to carry meaning whose key has been misplaced. Even the arrangement of items within the tombs raises questions. Why were certain objects placed in specific positions? What beliefs guided their burial rituals? And what knowledge did these individuals carry that we have yet to rediscover? In the end, the Bactrian gold is more than a treasure. It is a whisper from a world that existed at the intersection of cultures, ideas, and forgotten histories. And as researchers continue to uncover fragments of that world, one quiet question lingers: how much of its story remains buried, still waiting to shine through the dust of time? And as we leave the windswept burial mounds of Tepe behind, our journey moves southwest, across mountains, plains, and the long corridors of ancient trade, to a place where silence feels heavier, as if the earth itself holds its breath. Here, in the Khuzestan province of southwestern Iran, rises one of the most imposing and enigmatic structures of the ancient world, the Chogha, Zanbil, Ziggurat. At first sight, the monument seems almost out of place. A massive, tiered pyramid of sun-baked brick, standing alone on a broad, arid plain, surrounded by miles of open land and low hills. The desert wind flows through its empty courtyards and broken stairways, carrying with it the faint echo of a civilization that vanished more than 3,000 years ago. The ziggurat's stepped terraces rise in measured geometric order, their lines softened by time, yet unmistakably deliberate. An architecture built not only for the eyes of humans, but for the attention of the divine. Chogha Zanbil was created around 1250 BCE by the Elamite king Untitleparisha. Its purpose, as far as the surviving records tell us, was to honor Inshushinak, the chief deity of Elam. But the scale of the project raises larger questions. The ziggurat was part of a vast sacred complex, a walled city dedicated not to people, but to gods. Temples, palaces, ceremonial gates, and storage halls formed concentric layers around the central pyramid, suggesting a ritual landscape rather than a practical urban one. Why would a king invest such immense resources into a city that humans were apparently never meant to inhabit? From what we know, the Elamites were skilled builders, administrators, and artists, deeply influenced by neighboring Mesopotamia, yet distinct in language, religion, and identity. Their ziggurat resembles those of Babylon and Ur, but the similarities only deepen the mystery. Chogha Zanbil was unusually ambitious, a 5-tiered monument rising approximately 52 meters in its original form. Today, erosion has softened its upper levels, but its foundations remain strikingly intact. Its construction shows precision. Hundreds of thousands of mud bricks were stamped with inscriptions bearing the king's name. Glazed bricks of blue, yellow, and black once adorned the temples, shimmering in the desert light. Wells and water filtration systems suggest advanced engineering. And deep beneath the structure, archaeologists uncovered a network of underground chambers, some thought to hold royal offerings, others whose function remains unclear. Yet the ziggurat's remote location, far from major rivers or established urban centers, has puzzled researchers for decades. Why build such an elaborate monument here? Was this site chosen for religious significance, perhaps an older shrine or sacred landscape? Or did the Elamite king seek to establish a new religious capital, one that might have redefined the spiritual geography of his kingdom? Mainstream archaeology points toward political motivation. Untashnaparisha may have been attempting to unify the diverse tribes of Elam under a central religious authority. But questions linger. Excavations have revealed that construction stopped abruptly, long before the city was complete. Some outer temples were left unfinished. Bricks lie stacked as if workers walked away mid-task. What halted the project? Lack of resources? Political upheaval? Or something less obvious, something lost to time? Within the ziggurat's interior walls, archaeologists found curious objects. Foundation deposits, ceramic boxes containing miniature weapons, figurines, and mysterious seals. These offerings were meant to invoke protection for the building itself, a common practice in Mesopotamian cultures. But at Chogha Zanbil, some of these deposits contain symbols that do not correspond neatly to known Elamite iconography. Were these artistic variations, or hints of older beliefs folded into the new temple's identity? One of the more puzzling features lies near the outer wall, a series of elaborate water channels and basins designed to capture and purify rainfall. Some scholars interpret this as a practical method to support the complex's inhabitants. Others see it as ritual technology, meant to create sacred water for ceremonies. Still others note that the placement of the channels aligns with certain astronomical orientations, an observation that opens the door to more speculative interpretations. Was Chogha Zanbil designed not only as a temple, but as a kind of cosmic instrument? A structure that linked the heavens, the earth, and the underworld? Archaeoastronomers have suggested that the ziggurat's corners align closely with the cardinal directions, a precision that would have required careful observation of the skies. The Elamites, like many ancient cultures, monitored the movement of celestial bodies. If the ziggurat's terraces and angles were intended to guide or mark certain astronomical events, then its purpose might extend beyond worship into a realm we only partly understand, tracking seasons, predicting celestial cycles, or symbolically reenacting the structure of the universe. More speculative theories venture further, wondering whether the site's remote location was intentional for reasons no longer clear. Could it have stood on a now-lost pilgrimage route? Was the landscape considered spiritually charged, perhaps due to natural formations or earlier settlements long since erased? Or did something beneath the earth, mineral deposits, geological anomalies, or older ruins, draw the Elamites to this place? There is also the matter of the incomplete construction. Some fringe theories point to disaster, evidence of sudden abandonment, as if workers left in haste. Yet archaeological findings reveal no signs of fire, siege, or natural catastrophe. The city simply stopped growing, almost as if its purpose had already been fulfilled, or had become irrelevant for reasons we cannot fully trace. Today, walking through the silent corridors of Chogha Zanbil, one feels a presence that is difficult to articulate. The open sky presses down gently on the broken terraces. The desert wind moves through doorways that once framed sacred rituals. The ziggurat's bricks, worn smooth by centuries, retain the imprint of hands that shaped them with intention and care. And yet, the meaning behind that intention remains partly obscured. Why did a king build a sacred city for gods who required no human audience? What were the ceremonies held in its courtyards, the chants once sung on its upper platforms? Why did construction end so suddenly, freezing this monumental undertaking in an unfinished state? As with so many ancient mysteries, Chogha Zanbil offers just enough clarity to affirm its grandeur, and just enough uncertainty to deepen its silence. And somewhere within that silence lies a question still waiting for an answer. What untold purpose did this sacred mountain once serve, and what secrets may still rest beneath its sun-baked stones? And from the sun-baked terraces of Chogha Zanbil, our path carries us northwest, across continents, across climates, and across the subtle shifts in ancient imagination, until the dry winds of the Near East give way to the cool, rolling green of the Irish countryside. Here, in the gentle hills of the Boyne Valley, another monument rises. It is older than the pyramids of Egypt, older even than Stonehenge, and yet its purpose continues to stir debate, wonder, and quiet reverence. This is Newgrange. At first glance, the structure might almost blend into the landscape, a great grassy mound, nearly circular, framed by a ring of ancient standing stones. But as you draw closer, the details sharpen. A massive curbstone decorated with swirling enigmatic spirals guards the entrance. White quartz and dark basalt stones form a gleaming facade, reconstructed from fragments found in the earth. A narrow passageway leads into the heart of the mound, lined with slabs carved by hands that lived more than 5,000 years ago. The entire structure feels deliberate, precise, and deeply symbolic. Newgrange is a passage tomb, or so archaeology describes it, built around 3,200 BCE by Neolithic communities whose names we do not know. Its central chamber holds 3 recesses where human remains were once placed. But to view Newgrange simply as a burial site is to overlook the complexity woven into every inch of its design. The structure is aligned with extraordinary accuracy to the rising sun on the winter solstice. For a few minutes each year, a narrow beam of sunlight enters through a small opening above the doorway, known as the roof box, and travels down the passage to illuminate the chamber's inner stones. This moment, occurring at the darkest point of the year, transforms the entire monument into a kind of ritual theater. Light pierces the heart of the tomb, reversing the darkness, marking the sun's rebirth. Such precision raises immediate questions. How did a Neolithic society, without metal tools, without written records, without the technologies we associate with complex engineering, construct a monument aligned so flawlessly with a celestial event that shifts subtly each year? And why did they choose this moment, above all others, to encode into stone? The mainstream explanation suggests that the winter solstice held deep symbolic meaning, the return of the sun, the renewal of life, a cosmic reassurance. But Newgrange offers more than a single alignment. The carvings, spirals, lozenges, arcs, and interconnected lines appear throughout the site. Some scholars see them as representations of solar cycles, lunar phases, or the movement of stars. Others interpret them as maps, meditative symbols, or artistic expressions. But no consensus exists. No deciphered Rosetta Stone of Neolithic Ireland has ever been found. Inside the passage, the corbelled roof has remained waterproof for more than 5,000 years, a feat of engineering still admired today. The construction required transporting massive stones from locations miles away, some weighing several tons. Theories about how this was achieved range from simple rollers and ropes to more speculative ideas involving communal rituals, symbolic labor, or knowledge of mechanical techniques that have not survived in the archaeological record. As we move deeper into the site's story, the mystery expands outward into the landscape. Newgrange is only one part of a much larger megalithic complex, including Noth and Douth, similar monuments aligned to solar and lunar cycles. Together, these structures suggest a sophisticated cultural understanding of astronomy, mythology, and ceremony. But what if the complexity of this ancient world extended even further? Some researchers propose that the builders belonged to an advanced Neolithic tradition, one capable of organizing large populations for monumental works, something more intricate than earlier models of small, simple farming communities. Others propose that Newgrange served multiple roles: tomb, temple, calendar, and ceremonial center. Perhaps it was a place where the living connected with ancestors, where seasonal rituals were performed, where the rhythms of the cosmos were honored in stone. And then there are more speculative interpretations. A few suggest that Newgrange might have functioned as a symbolic womb of the earth, a place where the sun entered the mound to signal renewal. Others note parallels between the spirals found here and symbols found in distant regions, wondering whether such patterns emerged independently or were carried across ancient trade routes no longer visible. Some propose that the interior chamber, with its resonant acoustics, may have been used for sound-based rituals, chanting, or trance-like ceremonies. Experiments have shown that certain frequencies create unusual auditory effects inside the chamber. Were these intentional, or simply the byproduct of stone construction? Still more fringe ideas suggest that the builders possessed astronomical knowledge passed down from earlier cultures long vanished, or that Newgrange marks a place of particular geomagnetic significance, or that the monument's alignment, carvings, and structure reflect a worldview that modern interpretations cannot fully access. A fusion of practical astronomy and profound spiritual symbolism. Yet, amidst all these theories, one simple fact remains. We do not know exactly why Newgrange was built. Archaeological evidence gives us fragments: bones, pottery, beads, tools. The monument itself gives us carefully arranged stone, precise alignment, enduring symbolism. But the intentions of its builders, their beliefs, their stories, have not survived in written form. What remains is the monument itself, standing at the threshold between knowledge and mystery. As the winter sun rises each year and floods the ancient chamber with light, people gather, scholars, travelers, locals, hoping to witness the same moment their Neolithic ancestors once stood in awe of. It is a rare chance to feel time collapse, to sense the echo of ancient minds. But even in that moment of illumination, the deeper mystery persists. Was Newgrange a message to the future, a ritual built for the dead, a celebration of the sun's eternal cycle, or something even more obscure, something we have yet to imagine? The passage grows dark again as the solstice sun moves on. The mound returns to its quiet vigil, holding its secrets beneath layers of earth and time, and we are left with one lingering question. What understanding of the world did these ancient builders possess? What knowledge now forgotten that allowed them to craft such a monument of precision, power, and enduring mystery? And as the golden light of Newgrange fades behind us, our journey continues, westward now, crossing oceans and hemispheres, toward a place where mountains rise like ancient guardians and the air itself seems charged with memory. Here, high in the sacred valley of Peru, lies a site whose blend of beauty and engineering challenges even the most seasoned archaeologists. This is Ollantaytambo. At first sight, the location feels otherworldly. Terraced slopes cling to the mountainsides, their lines precise and unwavering despite centuries of wind and rain. Stone stairways climb toward the sky in long, determined sequences, and overlooking it all are the great walls of the Temple Hill, massive stone blocks fitted together so tightly that even a blade of grass cannot find space between them. The stones are enormous. Some weigh more than 50 tons. They rise in towering rows, pink granite monoliths transported from a quarry located across the valley, on the opposite side of a river and over rugged terrain. How these stones were moved, raised, and placed with such accuracy remains one of the site's enduring mysteries. Ollantaytambo is traditionally attributed to the Inca civilization, particularly to the reign of Pachacuti in the 15th century. It served as a royal estate, a ceremonial center, and later a fortress during the Spanish conquest. Much of the terracing, irrigation, and urban layout fits neatly within known Inca engineering practices that were undeniably advanced. But the upper structures, especially the massive unfinished walls of the Temple of the Sun, hint at something older, something more complex. Many archaeologists believe the site was expanded, modified, or built atop earlier foundations. The Inca themselves often incorporated older structures into their own designs, respecting and reusing the work of earlier cultures. Yet at Ollantaytambo, the differences in construction style are striking. Lower walls display smaller, more irregular stones, a style consistent with classical Inca masonry. Higher up, the stones become colossal, immaculately smoothed and meticulously shaped, with interlocking angles and subtle curves. Why such variation? Was the upper platform the work of a specialized team of Inca engineers using techniques reserved for religious or elite projects? Or was it inherited from an earlier civilization whose methods have not been fully traced? Transporting the granite blocks from the distant quarry adds another layer to the puzzle. The journey required crossing the raging Urubamba River. Archaeological evidence suggests that the stones were hauled along ramps, dragged by teams of workers using ropes, levers, and perhaps wooden rollers. But some of the heaviest stones remain abandoned along the path, monoliths partially shaped, seemingly left behind in the middle of transport. Why? Were they abandoned due to difficulty, or because construction itself suddenly stopped? Speculation deepens when examining the precision of the blocks. Many are shaped with multiple faces, not simple rectangles. Some have slight indentations that create a perfect interlocking fit. Others curve subtly to match the contours of neighboring stones. The artistry suggests knowledge not only of masonry but of geology, understanding how particular types of stone fracture, weather, and settle over time. Mainstream archaeology attributes this mastery to generations of evolving Andean engineering. Yet some researchers note that certain techniques at Ollantaytambo and other high Andean sites appear inconsistent with purely stone tool technology. There are cut marks that look unusually smooth, interior angles that are remarkably sharp, and surfaces that appear polished. Traditional explanations point to labor-intensive abrasion methods using sand and harder stone, but no definitive reconstruction has replicated every aspect of the masonry. More speculative theories suggest that the builders may have used heat treatment to fracture stone, or that they possessed a form of plant-based chemical softening, legends occasionally referenced in Andean oral history. These theories remain unproven, but they reflect the broader question: were the Andean builders working with a toolkit more nuanced than the one preserved in the archaeological record? Then there is the layout of the site itself. Ollantaytambo appears not only functional but cosmological. Some terraces align with celestial events, and the positioning of structures seems to echo surrounding mountain peaks. The Incas believed in apus, sacred mountain spirits, and many sacred sites in the region appear oriented toward these prominent natural features. One of the most enigmatic alignments is the wall of the 6 monoliths on Temple Hill. At certain times of the year, the rising sun casts patterns of light and shadow that align with carved notches and protuberances on the stones. Was this intentional? A calendar? A ritual marker? Or simply a coincidence in a landscape saturated with intense sunlight and rugged geography? Across the valley, carved into the mountainside, lies the so-called Face of the Inca, a rock formation resembling a human profile. Whether natural or modified, it adds another layer to the site's enigmatic character. And near the terraces stand mysterious carved rocks and niches, objects whose functions remain unclear. Were they altars? Observation points? Ritual platforms? Ollantaytambo's hydraulic systems also invite curiosity. Channels, fountains, and stone-lined waterways run with remarkable efficiency, maintaining steady flow through changing elevations. Some appear ritualistic, designed to direct water in symbolic patterns or provide purification for ceremonies. Others suggest practical urban planning of extraordinary sophistication. Walking through the site, the blend of engineering and landscape becomes unmistakable. Terraces merge with mountainsides. Buildings align with natural formations. Stone seems shaped not only by human intention but by an attempt to converse with the earth itself. Yet one question persists. Why was the Temple Hill never completed? The arrival of the Spanish may explain the halt in construction, but some features seem to have been abandoned long before the conflict reached this valley. The massive monoliths lying unfinished or paused in mid-transport imply a disruption, political, environmental, or spiritual. Something interrupted the work. Something caused the builders, whether Inca or an earlier culture, to leave tools and stones in place. Today, the wind moves between the terraces, whispering across walls shaped by unknown hands. The monoliths stand as silent witnesses to a story that remains only partially understood. And much like the other great mysteries scattered across the world, Ollantaytambo raises a profound question. What knowledge, what techniques, what beliefs guided the builders who shaped this mountain into a monument of precision, and what parts of that knowledge have been lost to time, still hidden in the stones that watch over the sacred valley? And as we leave the high Andes of Ollantaytambo behind, tracing a path through time and imagination, our journey carries us north once more, across continents and millennia, to the banks of a river that shaped one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Here, beneath the scorching Egyptian sun, an object lies preserved in silence, a vessel both literal and symbolic, designed to traverse more than water alone. This is the Egyptian solar boat. Discovered in 1954 near the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza, the boat was buried in a pit alongside the pharaoh's tomb. At first glance, it appears as an ordinary wooden vessel, its form simple yet elegant, but its significance and its mystery extends far beyond its physical presence. Carved from Lebanon cedar and meticulously assembled without nails, the boat stretches over 43 meters in length. Thousands of interlocking planks, joined with precision, create a vessel that could have been seaworthy even by modern standards. Its survival for more than 4,000 years is itself remarkable, a testament to craftsmanship that rivals the greatest feats of engineering in the ancient world. The mainstream interpretation is well known. The boat was a solar bark, intended to carry the pharaoh's soul across the heavens, accompanying the sun, god Ra, on his daily journey from dawn to dusk. Ancient Egyptians believed that the king, even in death, required transport to navigate both the earthly Nile and the celestial river of the afterlife. In this context, the boat is a ritual object, a vessel of transition and divine symbolism. And yet, questions emerge when we consider the scale and construction of the vessel. Its sheer size would have made transport, assembly, and burial an extraordinary challenge. Why go to such lengths for a symbolic object? Could the pharaoh himself, or the priests overseeing his tomb, have had practical intentions in mind? Some Egyptologists suggest the boat may have been functional, a riverine craft capable of navigating the Nile for ceremonial purposes before being interred. The construction techniques themselves deepen the mystery. Cedar planks were carefully shaped, with mortise and tenon joints and lashings that provided flexibility and resilience. The craftsmanship is precise enough to suggest a deep understanding of both woodworking and hydrodynamics. How did the builders develop such skills so long before modern tools? Could there have been knowledge, now lost, that allowed them to craft vessels capable of both symbolic and functional use? Even more curious is the context of its burial. The boat pit lies perfectly aligned with the cardinal points, echoing the geometric precision of the Great Pyramid itself. Was this deliberate? A reflection of the Egyptians' obsession with cosmic order? Or did it serve an additional, now forgotten purpose, perhaps related to solar worship, celestial observation, or even a form of early astronomical navigation? When the solar boat was reconstructed in the 1980s, a painstaking process involving thousands of tiny fragments, researchers marveled at the ingenuity of the original assembly. Yet the reconstruction revealed something the original builders had left unfinished. The boat was fully built, but there are no remains of sails, oars, or ropes. Was this deliberate, intended to signify a purely ritual use, or were practical elements omitted from the burial as part of a symbolic act? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that the boat might represent more than a single voyage. Could it encode knowledge of celestial cycles, mapping the movement of the sun across the sky in three-dimensional form? Others wonder whether the vessel was part of a wider system of sacred transport, ceremonial journeys connecting tombs, temples, and waterways, creating an intricate network of ritual movement across the Nile Valley. There are even fringe interpretations that see in the construction techniques hints of unknown tools, knowledge of buoyancy, or forgotten technologies that allowed ancient craftsmen to manipulate massive timbers with astonishing precision. The symbolic implications of the solar boat are equally profound. The vessel is not merely a container for the dead, it is a metaphor for life, death, and rebirth. Its journey mirrors the sun's daily cycle, emerging from darkness, traversing the visible world, and returning again to the hidden realm. In this sense, the boat serves as both a spiritual and temporal instrument, bridging realms in a way that challenges our understanding of ancient Egyptian belief and technological capability. Even today, as scholars and visitors gaze upon the reconstructed solar boat, questions persist. Was it intended solely for the pharaoh, or was it a prototype, part of a tradition of sacred vessels lost to history? Did it ever float on the Nile, or was it always meant to lie in stone and sand, a silent testament to divine power? And what other artifacts, equally ambitious and enigmatic, lie buried in the desert sands, waiting for time to reveal them? The pit itself, empty save for the vessel, feels like a message across the centuries, a deliberate act of preservation, designed to endure and to provoke thought. Walking alongside the solar boat, one is struck by its scale, its elegance, and its audacity. Here is an object that defies easy classification, part art, part engineering, part ritual device, and yet stands fully in our world, tangible and immediate. And as the wind shifts along the Giza Plateau, carrying with it the scent of sand, stone, and history, one cannot help but wonder, what was truly known to the ancient Egyptians that we may never fully understand? How much of their mastery, technical, spiritual, or symbolic, remains hidden beneath the desert, waiting for discovery? The solar boat rests silently, its planks and joints whispering of a civilization that reached for both the heavens and the afterlife, leaving behind a mystery that continues to challenge our imagination. And somewhere within the design, the alignment, and the very act of burial lies a question that endures. What secrets did the builders of this vessel intend to carry across time, and how much of that knowledge is still waiting for us to uncover? And as the ancient Nile recedes behind us, our path turns westward across the Atlantic, carrying us to a land of dense forests, winding rivers, and fertile plains, a landscape seemingly ordinary, yet marked by subtle traces of civilizations long vanished. Here, in the heart of North America, rise the silent remnants of a society whose complexity and reach are only beginning to be understood. These are the burial mounds of the Mississippian culture. Stretching from the Ohio Valley to the Gulf Coast, the Mississippian civilization flourished between roughly 800 and 1600 CE, long before European settlers arrived. Their legacy is scattered across hundreds of sites, from small earthen mounds to sprawling ceremonial complexes. Among the most famous is Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis, where Monk's Mound rises 90 feet above the surrounding floodplain, a vast platform of packed earth, meticulously shaped and carefully leveled. At first glance, these mounds seem simple, earth piled high in geometric shapes, terraces formed by hand, flat tops sometimes supporting wooden structures. But even this simplicity conceals remarkable sophistication. Many mounds were constructed with precise orientation, aligning with cardinal points, celestial events, or river courses. The scale of labor required is staggering. Tens of thousands of person-hours moved to create these monumental forms, all without metal tools or draft animals. Excavations reveal more than earth. Within these mounds lie burial chambers containing human remains, ceremonial artifacts, and items of great craftsmanship. Shell gorgets, copper ornaments, finely carved stone effigies, and ceremonial pottery speak of a culture capable of both artistry and social organization on a large scale. These were not merely graves, they were statements of power, belief, and connection to the cosmos. Mainstream archaeology suggests the mounds served multiple purposes: elite burials, ceremonial centers, and platforms for temples or public buildings. The Mississippian culture appears hierarchical, with social and political structures sophisticated enough to coordinate large-scale construction and agricultural management. Trade networks extended hundreds of miles, connecting the Mississippi Valley to the Great Lakes, the Gulf Coast, and the Appalachian Mountains. Yet questions persist. Why were these mounds built in such precise geometric patterns? Why choose certain river terraces, hilltops, or floodplains for these monumental efforts? And what happened to the civilization that created them? Evidence suggests sudden shifts, abandoned mounds, depopulated towns, and a decline in large-scale construction around the 14th and 15th centuries. Scholars debate whether environmental changes, resource depletion, conflict, or disease played a role. But the abruptness and uniformity of the decline hint at forces we may not fully comprehend. Some mounds contain burials so elaborate that they suggest a society deeply invested in cosmology and ritual. At sites like Etowah in Georgia or Spiro in Oklahoma, burial goods include mica sheets, copper plates, and exotic shells, objects traced to sources hundreds of miles away. The implication is clear. The Mississippians were part of a networked, mobile, and sophisticated world, yet one that left no written record. How did they transmit knowledge, maintain social cohesion, and encode their beliefs without writing? Speculative interpretations take us further. Some researchers propose that the mounds were part of a grand cosmological plan, encoding lunar, solar, and possibly planetary cycles. Certain alignments within mound complexes suggest observation points for solstices or equinoxes, perhaps used for agricultural or ceremonial purposes. Others note the possibility of acoustic phenomena, terraces and chambers that amplify sound or create unique resonances, perhaps designed to enhance ritual experiences or oral storytelling. Another puzzle lies in the continuity and repetition of certain forms. Conical mounds, platform mounds, and effigy mounds, shaped like animals, birds, or serpents, appear in patterns repeated across vast distances. Were these shared symbols of spiritual meaning, markers of political control, or something more enigmatic, a kind of coded language understood across communities yet lost to us today? The mounds themselves also suggest an intimate relationship with the surrounding environment. Many are placed on elevated terraces overlooking rivers, hinting at both practical and spiritual considerations. Waterways served as transportation routes and sources of sustenance, but they may have also carried symbolic significance. Did the Mississippians view rivers as sacred arteries connecting their towns, mounds, and ceremonial centers to each other and to the cosmos? Walking among these earthen structures today, the scale and precision of construction remain striking. The earth, molded and compacted by countless hands, continues to hold its form. Shadows fall across the terraces, and one can almost imagine the processions, ceremonies, and daily life of a culture whose presence once dominated the valleys. Yet, despite modern excavation and study, the full purpose, meaning, and technological prowess of the builders remain partly elusive. Even the most carefully reconstructed theories leave room for wonder. How did societies without writing preserve complex astronomical and architectural knowledge? How did they coordinate labor across vast regions? And why did monumental construction stop so abruptly, leaving some mounds unfinished, their summits bare, their chambers silent? As we reflect on the Mississippian mounds, a subtle question emerges. What knowledge, belief, or vision of the cosmos did these people carry, so profound that it shaped entire landscapes? And what fragments of that understanding remain hidden beneath the soil, still waiting to whisper their secrets to those who would listen? Standing quietly among these ancient mounds, it is easy to feel the weight of time, the persistence of human ingenuity, and the enduring mystery of a civilization that, though vanished, continues to challenge our understanding. And as the wind moves through the grass and the river winds below, one cannot help but wonder, what more lies buried beneath these earthen monuments, waiting to reveal the untold chapters of North America's ancient past? And as we leave behind the carefully crafted mounds of the Mississippian culture, our journey drifts southward into dense rainforests and winding rivers, into landscapes where mist clings to mountains and the soil itself seems to hide secrets. It is here, in the heart of South America, that legend and history intertwine in one of the most enduring mysteries of the New World: the lost city of gold, El Dorado. El Dorado is less a single place than a legend woven from fragments of observation, rumor, and awe. Early European explorers, arriving in the 16th century, heard tales of a city rich beyond imagining, where gold-covered buildings, streets glimmered in sunlight, and rulers were adorned in molten treasures from head to toe. These accounts ignited the imagination of conquistadors and map-makers alike, sending expeditions into the dense jungles of modern Colombia, Venezuela, and beyond. But despite centuries of searching, the city itself has never been found. Historical evidence suggests that the myth of El Dorado may have originated from the ritual practices of the Muisca people. Their leaders, Zipas, were said to cover themselves in gold dust and dive into sacred lakes as offerings to the gods. Over time, these ceremonies were exaggerated in European retellings, transforming a ritual into the image of a city of pure gold. But even if rooted in ritual, the sheer persistence of the legend hints at something deeper: a collective vision, a cultural memory, and perhaps a lost civilization whose treasures and knowledge remain buried beneath the jungle canopy. Geography itself adds to the mystery. The Andes, their peaks cloaked in clouds, descend into dense lowland forests that seem impenetrable. Rivers twist through valleys where sunlight rarely touches the forest floor, and the terrain changes suddenly, confusing even the most determined explorers. Cartographers of the 16th and 17th centuries drew maps filled with imagined lakes, rivers, and cities, some based on indigenous accounts, others on rumor. Many of these features have never been corroborated by modern archaeology. Could the explorers' failure have been a matter of geography alone? Or does the legend of El Dorado guard something real, hidden in plain sight? Some archaeological discoveries add tantalizing hints. Ancient mounds, sunken lakes, and settlements deep in the Amazon suggest complex pre-Columbian societies far richer and more organized than early European records acknowledged. Certain sites reveal sophisticated gold-working techniques, intricate ceramics, and structures aligned with rivers and solar cycles. The presence of these advanced cultures raises the possibility that the accounts of cities of gold were not entirely imaginary, but exaggerations of real wealth and ceremonial grandeur. Speculative theories extend even further. Some suggest that El Dorado was never meant to be a city at all, but a symbolic representation of a sacred place or ritual, a metaphorical realm of abundance rather than a literal urban center. Others propose that the riches were dispersed among secretive societies or hidden in underground networks, designed to survive raids or vanish in the face of European conquest. Certain explorers reported trails of gold, artifacts embedded in riverbeds, or buried caches fueling centuries of treasure hunting. Yet none of these claims has produced a confirmed find matching the legendary descriptions. The endurance of the myth also raises cultural and psychological questions. Why has El Dorado persisted for nearly 5 centuries, shaping exploration, conquest, and imagination? Perhaps it reflects humanity's fascination with abundance, or our desire to encounter something beyond comprehension, an ultimate reward hidden in uncharted lands. And perhaps the mystery itself, the impossibility of reaching a place that may never have existed in the literal sense, is part of what gives the legend its power. Geology and environmental change complicate the search. Many areas once accessible to pre-Columbian societies are now flooded, overgrown, or eroded. Rivers have shifted courses, and centuries of tropical growth have concealed the traces of settlements. Could the city of gold have been swallowed by the natural world, leaving only hints for those who know how to read the landscape? Or was the wealth never centralized in a city but distributed across a network of ceremonial sites, lakes, and mounds now scattered across vast regions? Some researchers have turned to satellite imaging, LiDAR, and remote sensing to penetrate the jungle canopy, revealing hidden terraces, roads, and potential settlement sites. These tools have uncovered evidence of complex land use and urban planning previously invisible to the human eye. While none of these discoveries have confirmed the legendary city, they suggest that the ancient peoples of the region were far more sophisticated than European accounts acknowledged, and that the jungle may yet hold secrets that have resisted discovery for centuries. And then there is the human element, countless lives risked in pursuit of a dream, driven by the allure of gold and the promise of immortality through discovery. Stories of explorers lost, men and women vanished into rivers and jungles, add a layer of haunting reality to the legend. Did some stumble upon sites that were deliberately hidden or overlooked, their accounts lost to history? Did El Dorado exist, not as a single place, but as a series of hidden centers of power and ritual, now reclaimed by forest and time? Walking along the shores of lakes where the Muisca once performed their rituals, or tracing riverbeds said to conceal gold, one is struck by the thin line between history and myth. Each artifact, each mound, each fragment of pre-Columbian settlement carries a whisper of possibility, yet none confirms the city itself. It is as if the legend protects its secret by scattering truth across fact, exaggeration, and imagination. And so the mystery of El Dorado endures. Was it a single golden city, a metaphor for divine wealth, or a network of ceremonial centers whose traces are slowly fading beneath the rainforest? Did the wealth exist and vanish, or was the legend born purely of human desire and imagination? The search continues as explorers, archaeologists, and dreamers push deeper into landscapes that resist mapping, seeking a city that may exist only in memory, or perhaps still lies hidden, waiting for its story to be fully told. The Lost City of Gold, real or imagined, challenges our perception of history, wealth, and human ambition. And as we move quietly through the shadows of these ancient forests, the question remains, suspended in time: what truths are buried beneath the canopy, and how much of the legend might yet be found, shimmering just beyond the reach of those who dare to look? And as the lush forests and hidden lakes of South America fade from view, our journey turns once more to the northern reaches of the continent, where rivers carve through rocky valleys and the Atlantic tides wash quietly against the shores of New England. Here, along the banks of the Taunton River in Massachusetts, rests a stone that has puzzled scholars, explorers, and visitors for centuries: the enigmatic Dighton Rock. At first glance, the rock might appear unremarkable. A boulder of brownish-gray granodiorite, weathered and irregular, partially submerged in the riverbed, its surface scarred by time and tide. Yet the closer one looks, the more its extraordinary nature emerges. Across its face stretch hundreds of carvings, lines, geometric patterns, symbols, and intricate designs, some resembling figures, others abstract forms that resist interpretation. Each etching seems deliberate, yet their origin remains elusive. Who carved them, and for what purpose? Dighton Rock was first recorded by European settlers in the 17th century, though indigenous peoples of the region had long known of its presence. Early colonial accounts marveled at its strange inscriptions, speculating that they might be messages from ancient visitors, navigational markers, or signs of sacred rites. Over the centuries, the rock has been moved, studied, and preserved, yet the mystery has only deepened. Its carvings resist easy categorization, with scholars debating whether they represent human communication, ritual symbolism, or even natural phenomena misinterpreted as markings. Mainstream archaeological interpretations generally suggest Native American origins, linking the carvings to the pre-colonial peoples of the region, perhaps as territorial markers, storytelling devices, or ceremonial symbols. Some patterns resemble petroglyphs found across North America, echoing motifs of animals, celestial bodies, or abstract representations of social and spiritual life. But many of the shapes remain unique, raising questions about cultural influences, symbolic meaning, and the methods used to create them. Over the centuries, Dighton Rock has inspired alternative theories that challenge conventional explanation. Some 18th and 19th century scholars proposed that the carvings were made by Norse explorers, noting perceived similarities with runes. Others speculated that Portuguese sailors had left cryptic messages after early transatlantic voyages, or that the rock was evidence of lost civilizations reaching the Americas long before Columbus. Even Leonardo da Vinci enthusiasts have been drawn to it, suggesting stylistic connections to Old World engraving techniques. None of these claims has been definitively proven, yet each theory adds layers to the rock's enduring aura of mystery. The rock itself is a study in subtlety. Its carvings vary in depth and technique, suggesting multiple periods of creation, or perhaps different tools. Some marks are shallow and fine, others deep and angular. Were they made all at once, or did generations add to the inscriptions over time? Could the rock have served as a living record, accumulating symbols and meanings across centuries? And if so, what messages, stories, or knowledge were intended to endure beneath the river's currents? Dighton Rock also raises questions about the relationship between human culture and landscape. Its location, partially submerged in a tidal river, accessible only at low water, implies a deliberate choice, perhaps tied to ritual practice, observation of natural phenomena, or the marking of territory. Was the river itself part of the rock's significance, a sacred or symbolic feature that amplified the carving's meaning? Or was it simply a convenient location, chosen for its visibility and permanence? Some researchers have even suggested that the rock's markings may reflect astronomical or calendrical knowledge. Patterns resembling solar symbols, grids, or sequences have been noted, prompting speculation that the creators may have used the stone as a reference for celestial events or agricultural cycles. While these theories remain debated, they underscore the sophistication that the rock's creators may have possessed, hinting at knowledge systems lost to time. The rock has also become a mirror for human imagination, reflecting the hopes, fears, and obsessions of those who have studied it. Explorers, historians, and treasure hunters have projected onto it visions of ancient mariners, secret messages, and forgotten civilizations. Its ambiguous form allows for endless interpretation, yet this very ambiguity is what has preserved its intrigue across centuries. Even today, visitors to Dighton Rock State Park feel a palpable sense of connection to the past. Running one's hand across the etched surface, observing the way water has smoothed some lines while deepening others, one senses a dialogue across time. These are not merely scratches on stone, they are echoes of people, of ideas, and of the human desire to leave a mark that survives beyond mortality. Yet after all this study, the rock continues to withhold its full story. Who carved these symbols, and why? Are we looking at a coherent system of communication, or a series of artistic, ceremonial, or utilitarian expressions? Could there be layers of meaning we cannot perceive, encoded in a language or symbolic logic now lost? And so Dighton Rock rests quietly in the river's ebb and flow, a silent witness to centuries of curiosity and speculation. Its carvings invite reflection, challenging us to consider the limits of our understanding and the richness of cultures whose traces endure in unexpected places. What truths, what stories, what knowledge might still be hidden on its weathered surface, waiting for the patient observer to decipher? As the river moves around the boulder, carrying sediment and shadow alike, one cannot help but wonder how many other markers, symbols, or monuments have been lost, submerged, or overlooked. And what secrets might they reveal about the people who shaped them, and about ourselves as seekers of history, meaning, and mystery? And as the river-carved boulders of New England recede behind us, our journey turns south and west, beyond oceans and forests, into the heart of Central America, where dense tropical jungles rise like emerald fortresses, concealing secrets that have endured for centuries. Here, amidst the mist and canopy of Guatemala's Petén region, lie the ruins of a civilization whose monumental architecture and intricate knowledge continue to captivate scholars and explorers alike. This is Tikal. At first sight, Tikal feels both vast and intimate. Ancient pyramidal temples thrust skyward, their stepped profiles emerging from the dense green, capped with stone temples that seem to touch the clouds. The city spreads across miles, with plazas, ball courts, palaces, and ceremonial platforms, all interwoven by causeways that once hummed with the life of a thriving Maya metropolis. From above, the forest canopy is punctuated by these stone towers, as if nature itself acknowledges the extraordinary presence of human ambition. Tikal flourished between roughly 200 and 900 CE, reaching a population of tens of thousands, a networked city-state embedded in the broader Maya civilization. The temples, particularly Temple 1, also called the Temple of the Great Jaguar, and Temple 4, rise to astonishing heights of 47 and 70 meters, respectively, dominating the skyline. Their construction required extraordinary engineering skill. Massive limestone blocks transported, carved, and stacked with precision, forming structures that have survived centuries of tropical weather, earthquakes, and the encroaching jungle. Mainstream archaeology tells us much about Tikal. The city was a political, religious, and economic hub. Its temples served as ritual centers where kings and priests performed ceremonies to honor gods, observe celestial movements, and reinforce social hierarchies. The architecture itself, including terraces, corbelled vaults, and stairways aligned with cardinal directions, reflects a sophisticated understanding of geometry and astronomy. Hieroglyphic inscriptions, stelae, and burial sites reveal dynastic histories, alliances, and conflicts, giving us glimpses into the lives and ambitions of the Maya elite. Yet the Tikal temples also evoke deeper mysteries. How did the Maya construct such enormous structures in dense jungle without metal tools, draft animals, or the wheel? Transporting limestone blocks across uneven terrain required ingenuity, but certain methods remain speculative. Did the builders rely solely on human labor and simple tools, or is their knowledge lost to time about engineering, organization, or materials that allowed such feats? Beyond the mechanics of construction, questions arise about the temple's purpose and placement. Many structures align with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles, suggesting a celestial calendar encoded in stone. Was each temple built to capture sunlight at specific moments, or to frame views of distant mountains and river valleys with symbolic significance? Could the city itself have been a reflection of cosmological principles, a terrestrial map of celestial order? Some researchers propose that Tikal, like other Maya cities, functioned as a living observatory. Temple tops may have served not only as platforms for ritual, but also for tracking the movement of Venus, Jupiter, or other planets, events closely tied to agricultural cycles and religious ceremonies. Others note that water management in the city, including reservoirs, canals, and terraces, demonstrates advanced understanding of hydrology in a challenging environment. Yet how much of this knowledge was consciously recorded, and how much transmitted orally or symbolically, remains unknown. Tikal also presents enigmas in its sudden decline. By the 9th century, many of the city's monumental constructions ceased, and the population dispersed. Scholars attribute this to environmental stress, overpopulation, warfare, or political collapse, yet the exact combination of factors remains debated. Did the temples themselves hold clues to understanding this societal unraveling? Were there alignments, inscriptions, or hidden chambers deliberately sealed or abandoned in ways that signal a broader cultural transformation? Speculative theories invite even more intrigue. Some suggest that hidden chambers within the pyramids may contain ritual artifacts, royal tombs, or knowledge that has yet to be unearthed. Others propose that the Maya encoded esoteric or spiritual knowledge in the temple's geometry, proportion, and placement, messages designed to endure beyond the reach of contemporary observers. Certain alignments and architectural motifs suggest that the Maya were not merely builders but philosophers of space, light, and time, creating structures that functioned as both sacred objects and records of cosmic understanding. Walking through Tikal today, the scale of human ambition is impossible to ignore. Monuments rise above the jungle in silent testimony, their surfaces worn yet eloquent. The wind carries the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of howler monkeys, creating an atmosphere both serene and awe-inspiring. Standing at the base of Temple 4, one senses the deliberate magnitude of the construction, an architectural language designed to inspire reverence, control perception, and communicate power. Yet for all we know, much remains unseen. What secrets lie within the depths of the temple's cores, beneath layers of stone, earth, and centuries of vegetation? How much of the Maya's astronomical, ritual, and mathematical knowledge is encoded in ways we have yet to fully decipher? And beyond the temples themselves, what stories of daily life, belief, and movement across this vast cityscape remain buried in the earth, waiting for patient hands to uncover them? Tikal stands as both achievement and enigma. It is a place where stone meets sky, where human aspiration engages with nature and cosmos, and where history and mystery converge. The temples rise in silent challenge, inviting us to consider not only what the Maya accomplished, but also what they understood about the world, the heavens, and the passage of time. And as sunlight filters through the jungle canopy, illuminating the temple's terraces and plazas, one is left with a lingering question. What remains hidden within Tikal's stones, and what might these ancient structures still reveal to those willing to observe, to imagine, and to wonder at the knowledge that endures in silence? And as the dense canopies of the Maya world fade behind us, our journey carries us across continents, over mountains and deserts, to the Horn of Africa, where the highlands of northern Ethiopia rise in jagged splendor. Here, amidst the ochre and green of ancient valleys, stand monuments that pierce the sky with a quiet, imposing authority, reminders of a civilization both sophisticated and mysterious. These are the Axum Obelisks. At first sight, they are breathtaking. Towering monoliths of granite, carved from single stones, rise up to 24 meters in height, their surfaces etched with precise, shallow reliefs that mimic the multi-storied palaces of a kingdom long vanished. Each obelisk is a masterwork of geometry and balance, tapering gracefully as it ascends, crowned with a stylized representation of the royal dwelling, and adorned with intricate designs that suggest windows, doors, and ceremonial ornamentation. They dominate the landscape, yet somehow seem perfectly in harmony with the rolling highlands, as if they grew from the earth itself. The Axumite civilization, which flourished between roughly the 1st and 7th centuries CE, is credited with creating these extraordinary monuments. Axum was a hub of trade, culture, and religion, linking the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, and interacting with Egypt, the Mediterranean, and the Arabian Peninsula. These obelisks, or stelae, as scholars often call them, served as markers for royal graves, commemorative monuments for rulers, and possibly as symbols of power and prestige. Yet for all that is known, the obelisks retain an aura of mystery that continues to puzzle researchers. One of the first enigmas lies in their construction. Each monolith was carved from a single granite block, sometimes weighing several hundred tons. Transporting such stones from quarries several kilometers away, raising them into a vertical position, and setting them without collapsing seems an almost insurmountable feat, especially without the use of cranes, pulleys, or other modern machinery. How did the Axumites manage such a task with remarkable precision? Were ramps, levers, and manpower sufficient, or did they employ techniques now lost to history? The design of the stelae also invites curiosity. The carved reliefs imitate multi-story palaces, yet the symbolism is not fully understood. Do the windows and doors signify the passage of the soul to the afterlife? Do the ornamental bands encode religious or political information? Some scholars suggest that the decorations reflect architectural styles that have otherwise vanished, giving us a glimpse of Axumite construction methods and aesthetic sensibilities that survive nowhere else. Then there is the question of alignment. Many obelisks are positioned in rows with orientations that may correspond to celestial or topographical features. Some researchers propose that their placement marked solstices, equinoxes, or other astronomical events, integrating the monuments into a broader cosmological worldview. Yet no definitive pattern has been confirmed, leaving room for speculation about the relationship between these monumental stones, their surrounding landscape, and the heavens above. The history of the obelisks adds further intrigue. Several were toppled or broken centuries ago, for reasons that remain unclear. Some may have fallen during political upheaval, while others were displaced during invasions or earthquakes. In the 20th century, foreign powers transported fragments abroad. Most famously, one stela was taken to Italy in the 1930s, only to be returned decades later. How much knowledge about their construction, original placement, and intended function was lost in the process? And what secrets remain buried beneath the soil, hidden for centuries? Speculative theories extend the mystery even further. Some propose that the stelae may have served as markers of ancient energy, geomantic points, or ritual centers designed to connect the earthly and the divine. Others suggest that the precise engineering of the stones reflects a level of technical sophistication beyond what surviving Axumite tools might indicate. A hint that knowledge of physics, leverage, or structural mechanics has been partially lost to time. Walking among the stelae today, one is struck by their enduring presence. Despite centuries of exposure to the elements, war, and human interference, the granite monuments stand resilient. Their sheer verticality and elegance create a sense of awe, as though the ancient builders intended the observer to feel both their power and their mystery. Shadows shift across the carved windows and doors with the movement of the sun, evoking the sense that the monuments themselves participate in a quiet dialogue with time and light. Even with modern archaeological study, much about the Axum Obelisks remains unexplained. How exactly were they erected? What precise rituals, beliefs, or cosmologies guided their creation? Did each stela have a unique purpose, or were they part of a larger, symbolic narrative spanning generations of kings and priests? And, perhaps most compellingly, what knowledge, engineering techniques, or spiritual insights have been lost along with the society that raised these colossal stones? The Axum Obelisks continue to challenge our understanding of human ingenuity and cultural expression. They are at once tomb markers, architectural marvels, and symbols of a civilization whose written records are sparse and whose oral traditions have largely faded. Their presence reminds us that even in a world we study exhaustively, some achievements resist full comprehension, inviting us to contemplate not only the people who created them, but also the enduring mysteries that outlast empires. As the sun sets over the Ethiopian highlands, casting long shadows across the stelae, one is left with a profound sense of wonder. What remains hidden beneath the earth in the surrounding valleys, or encoded within the monuments themselves? How much more might the obelisks reveal about Axumite culture, technology, and belief if we could read their full story? The stones remain, silent yet insistent, challenging us to look closer, to think deeper, and to acknowledge that some mysteries, no matter how carefully studied, continue to endure. And as the highlands of Ethiopia fade behind us, our journey now turns once more toward South America, to the arid, sun-bleached valleys of Peru, where the desert stretches between jagged mountains and the Pacific winds whisper across the sand. Here lies an object of profound fascination and enduring controversy: the Ica Stones. At first glance, they might seem ordinary, smooth, dark stones, often palm-sized, their surfaces polished by time and handling. But closer inspection reveals etched images, hundreds of them, depicting scenes that defy conventional understanding. Dinosaurs roam alongside humans. Advanced surgical procedures are illustrated in meticulous detail. Astronomical charts, intricate maps, and scenes of prehistoric life cover their surfaces. Each stone is unique, yet together they form a collection that hints at knowledge far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to the civilizations of ancient Peru. The Ica Stones were first brought to widespread attention in the 1960s, when Dr. Javier Cabrera, a Peruvian physician, began collecting them from local farmers who claimed to have found them buried in the desert. Cabrera himself became fascinated by their diversity and detail, cataloging thousands of stones over decades. He argued that the stones represented evidence of advanced knowledge, possibly predating known human civilizations. Mainstream scholars, however, have long approached the stones with caution. Skeptics point to the lack of verifiable archaeological context, suggesting that many of the stones are modern creations, designed to intrigue, amuse, or deceive. Indeed, some farmers have admitted to carving stones to sell to collectors. Yet even with these admissions, the sheer number of stones, the range of imagery, and the precision of certain engravings continue to puzzle researchers. Could some of these artifacts reflect genuine ancient knowledge that has been lost, while others are later imitations? The content of the stones is what captures attention most vividly. Some depict humans interacting with creatures thought to have gone extinct millions of years before humans appeared, such as pterosaurs or stegosaurs. Others illustrate surgical procedures remarkably consistent with modern understanding. Brain surgery, cesarean sections, and complex dental operations. There are depictions of telescopes, advanced astronomical observations, and machines that resemble modern submarines or aircraft. If these images are accurate reflections of ancient knowledge, they suggest a civilization capable of observation, experimentation, and technology that defies conventional timelines. How could such knowledge exist in a society that, according to archaeological evidence, relied primarily on stone tools, agriculture, and early metallurgy? Did these images encode memory of a lost civilization, possibly one that existed before the rise of known Andean cultures, or were they symbolic, meant to convey mythological, spiritual, or cosmological ideas through anachronistic imagery? And if some of the stones are genuine, what can they tell us about the development of human understanding and the continuity of knowledge across time? The etchings themselves are remarkably detailed. Lines are precise, proportions carefully considered, and figures rendered with expressive realism. Some stones depict narrative sequences, almost as if telling stories across multiple surfaces. Could this represent a system of communication, a visual language that has yet to be deciphered? Or might it be an elaborate attempt at historical or educational illustration, encoding knowledge in a way intended to endure for generations? Geographically, the stones are concentrated in the Ica region, an area of dramatic deserts, river valleys, and ancient trade routes. Could the landscape itself have played a role in their creation, preservation, or purpose? Were these stones part of a larger cultural practice, a ritual of storytelling, or a form of record-keeping long forgotten? And if so, what other artifacts might remain buried, hidden beneath centuries of sand and soil, waiting to be rediscovered? The Ica Stones also touch on the broader question of human imagination, belief, and interpretation. The fact that some stones may be modern forgeries complicates the narrative, yet it also reflects humanity's fascination with the unknown. Even in the face of skepticism, the stones compel us to ask what is possible, to consider whether ancient humans, or civilizations lost to history, might have possessed knowledge we have yet to uncover or fully understand. As one examines the stones today, holding them in hand, the weight is both literal and symbolic. Each stone is a tangible connection to the past, an object that carries stories, questions, and enigmas across centuries. The imagery draws the viewer into a dialogue with time itself, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding and the gaps in our historical record. Yet, after decades of study, the stones continue to resist final interpretation. Were they tools of education, religious artifacts, or historical records? Were they the product of ancient genius, modern curiosity, or some combination of both? And beyond the stones themselves, what other traces of a potentially advanced or symbolic culture might lie hidden beneath the sands of Peru, undiscovered and waiting for patient observers to reveal their secrets? The Ica Stones, smooth and enigmatic, remain a testament to both human creativity and the enduring power of mystery. They invite us to look closer, to question what we think we know, and to consider that the past may hold insights far beyond our current understanding. And as the desert wind drifts across the Ica Valley, whispering through canyons and dunes, one cannot help but wonder what knowledge, what histories, and what truths might still be etched in stone, silently waiting to be discovered. And as the enigmatic Ica Stones fade from view, leaving the arid deserts of Peru behind, our journey carries us once more to the banks of the Nile, to a place where human ambition and devotion were carved into stone on a scale that continues to inspire awe. Here, amidst the sprawling city of Luxor, lies one of the most extraordinary temple complexes ever created, the Temple of Karnak. At first glance, Karnak is overwhelming. Massive pylons rise in succession, their sandstone surfaces etched with hieroglyphs that stretch across walls, columns, and ceilings. Gigantic statues of pharaohs and gods loom over courtyards, their gaze eternal, their presence both commanding and enigmatic. The hypostyle hall, with its forest of 134 colossal columns, each carved with intricate reliefs, creates a sensation of walking among giants. Light filters through narrow openings, casting shifting shadows that animate the carvings, as if the stories themselves are alive. Karnak was built and expanded over more than 2 millennia, from roughly 2055 BCE through the Ptolemaic period, becoming a living record of ancient Egyptian history, religion, and artistry. It served primarily as a center of worship for Amun-Ra, the chief deity, and functioned as a political and ceremonial hub. Kings used Karnak to assert divine legitimacy, record military victories, and participate in rituals designed to ensure cosmic order and societal prosperity. The scale of labor required, massive stone blocks transported, carved, and placed with meticulous precision, attests to organizational and engineering capabilities that remain astonishing even today. The temple complex itself is a labyrinth of courtyards, halls, sanctuaries, and sacred lakes, connected by processional avenues lined with sphinxes and statues. Hieroglyphic inscriptions detail religious ceremonies, offerings, and the reigns of countless pharaohs. Yet they also leave gaps, moments of ambiguity, unexplained symbols, and architectural anomalies that invite speculation. How were certain chambers aligned with such astronomical precision? How did builders manipulate massive stones without the cranes or machinery we take for granted? Some researchers suggest that Karnak encodes celestial knowledge with its axes aligned to solstices or specific star risings. The hypostyle hall itself may reflect cosmological symbolism, each column representing a primordial papyrus stalk supporting the heavens. Could the builders have intended the temple to function not merely as a place of worship, but as a living astronomical observatory, a calendar, or a map of the cosmos etched in stone? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been lost to time, buried beneath centuries of religious ritual and human activity? There are also anomalies that continue to puzzle archaeologists. Certain statues and reliefs seem to depict rituals or technology that defy easy interpretation. Some hieroglyphs, though mostly understood, include symbols whose exact meaning remains debated, sparking questions about ritual practices, secret knowledge, or ceremonial codes that were never meant to be fully understood by outsiders. Were these elements symbolic, mnemonic devices for priests, or remnants of esoteric knowledge carefully encoded to survive the millennia? Karnak's construction techniques remain equally enigmatic. Massive sandstone blocks, some weighing more than 70 tons, were quarried miles away, and transported across land and river. Reliefs carved into hard stone with extraordinary precision endure even today, yet the exact methods remain unclear. How did ancient craftsmen achieve such uniformity and detail without metal tools of sufficient hardness? Were there lost techniques or materials that enabled feats now considered impossible with the technology of the time? The sheer scale of the site also raises questions about its social and political implications. Tens of thousands of workers, artisans, and priests must have coordinated their efforts over generations. How was such monumental labor organized in an era without formalized project management as we know it today? Was the temple a reflection not only of religious devotion, but of a broader societal system capable of sustaining such a concentrated expression of power and belief over centuries? Speculative theories extend the mystery even further. Some researchers have suggested that hidden chambers or tunnels may still lie undiscovered beneath Karnak, containing ritual artifacts, inscriptions, or other knowledge lost to time. Others have pondered whether the temple's design incorporates acoustic properties, amplifying sound in ceremonial contexts to create spiritual or psychological effects. Could the ancient builders have understood principles of architecture, resonance, or optics that remain partially obscured from modern understanding? Walking through Karnak today, one feels both awe and humility. The air is heavy with centuries of ritual, with the weight of stone and history pressing subtly upon every visitor. Light and shadow play across hieroglyphs, causing scenes of pharaohs, gods, and ritual offerings to animate in the imagination. Every corner, every column, every corridor is a reminder that this was more than a temple. It was a manifestation of human ambition, religious devotion, and knowledge preserved in stone. Yet despite centuries of study, Karnak still resists complete understanding. How much of its construction was practical, and how much symbolic? Which elements encoded knowledge meant only for the initiated, and which communicated broader messages of power and legitimacy? How much more might be revealed through careful excavation, modern technology, or new approaches to interpreting the hieroglyphs and architecture? The Temple of Karnak stands as both monument and mystery. Its stones have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, floods of the Nile, and the passage of millennia. Yet they still hold secrets. They challenge us to consider not only what ancient Egyptians achieved with skill and devotion, but what knowledge, rituals, and intentions have been lost to history, waiting to be rediscovered. And as the sun sets over the Luxor horizon, casting the pylons and columns into long shadows that stretch across sand and stone, one is left with a lingering thought. What remains hidden within Karnak's sacred spaces, and how many layers of human understanding, lost techniques, or forgotten ceremonies still whisper through these ancient stones, waiting for patient eyes to perceive them? And as the monumental stones of Karnak fade into the desert haze behind us, our journey now turns across the vast Pacific to a region of scattered islands and cobalt waters where the ocean laps gently against coral reefs and mangroves. Here lies a place shrouded in mist and mystery, a city that seems to rise from the water itself, its ruins scattered across canals, islets, and basalt foundations, the lost city of Madol. At first sight, Madol is almost otherworldly. Situated off the eastern coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia, the city is built on a network of roughly 90 artificial islets, connected by narrow canals that give it the appearance of a watery Venice. Enormous basalt stones, some weighing as much as 50 tons, form walls, platforms, and tombs, creating a labyrinthine city that stretches over more than 200 acres. The stones are laid with remarkable precision, their interlocking patterns defying gravity, rising high enough to form imposing ceremonial structures and elite residences. Non-Madol flourished between roughly 1200 and 1600 CE. serving as the ceremonial and political center of the Sodelur dynasty. Mainstream archaeology suggests that it was a hub for governance, religion, and social organization, with the ruling elite living within its stone enclosures, while the common population resided in surrounding villages. The city's construction, however, poses questions that remain unanswered. How were these massive basalt columns quarried on the island's rugged terrain, transported across lagoons, and arranged with such precision without wheeled vehicles or metal tools? The techniques used to achieve this feat continue to elude modern scholars. The layout of Madol itself is as enigmatic as its construction. The city is divided into distinct districts, with islets serving ceremonial, residential, or burial purposes. The central islet, known as Temwen, contains royal tombs, temples, and large stone platforms, while the surrounding canals provide both practical and symbolic separation. Was the city designed with cosmological or spiritual intent? Some researchers propose that the canals functioned not only for transportation, but also as a ritualistic element, emphasizing the isolation of the ruling elite and their connection to the spiritual world. Could the very geography of the city have been conceived as a symbolic map, encoding authority, religion, or celestial knowledge into stone and water? Speculative interpretations extend the mystery even further. Some theorists suggest that the precise placement and alignment of certain structures may relate to astronomical phenomena, tidal cycles, or navigational markers. Could the builders of Nan Madol have possessed knowledge of engineering, hydraulics, or astronomy that far exceeded what is generally attributed to their time and culture? And if so, why was such extraordinary skill concentrated here on a remote island thousands of miles from the great civilizations of Asia or the Americas? Archaeological excavations have revealed remnants of sophisticated living conditions, including stone platforms for housing, drainage systems, and evidence of intensive cultivation and aquaculture. These findings suggest that Nan Madol was not only a ceremonial center but also a functional city, capable of sustaining a significant population in a challenging environment. Yet, much about the social and political systems that allowed this city to thrive remains obscure. How did the Sodelur dynasty organize labor, distribute resources, and maintain social order across such an intricate network of artificial islands? The origin of Nan Madol is equally mysterious. Local legend attributes the city to twin sorcerers, Olisipa and Olosopa, who arrived from across the sea and magically transported the massive stones into place. While myth and history blend in these stories, they reflect the enduring sense of awe inspired by the site. Could these legends preserve fragments of truth, a symbolic record of techniques, rituals, or cultural memory that have otherwise been lost? Or do they simply illustrate the human tendency to explain the extraordinary through the lens of myth? Natural forces add further intrigue. The city is vulnerable to rising tides, shifting currents, and tropical storms, yet much of the stonework endures remarkably intact. How did the builders anticipate and mitigate the effects of erosion and water pressure over centuries? Were certain engineering strategies employed that we have yet to recognize, hidden within the design of the canals, foundations, and retaining walls? Even today, the city seems alive with questions. Many islets remain unexplored, their stone walls overgrown with vegetation and lapped by tidal waters. The tombs and ceremonial platforms that have been excavated reveal only fragments of a society capable of extraordinary architectural achievement. What other secrets lie beneath the lagoon's surface or hidden within the dense growth that covers so much of Nan Madol? Could undiscovered inscriptions, tools, or artifacts illuminate aspects of the city's construction, governance, or ritual life that remain obscure? Walking among the remnants of Nan Madol, one is struck by a profound sense of scale and intention. The basalt monoliths, arranged with such care and forethought, suggest not just the exercise of power, but the embedding of knowledge into stone and water. Each platform, wall, and canal appears deliberate, as if the city itself is a message, a record, or a puzzle left for future generations to decipher. Yet, after centuries of fascination, Nan Madol retains its secrets. How exactly did a relatively small island society accomplish such monumental construction? What were the cultural, spiritual, or technological insights that guided the creation of this Venice of the Pacific? And what other knowledge, buried beneath stone and water, might still await discovery? The lost city of Nan Madol remains a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and the enduring power of mystery. It challenges our understanding of what is possible in isolation, in an environment that seems to defy large-scale construction, and in a society whose written records are scarce. As the sun dips low over the lagoon, casting long reflections across basalt walls and still waters, one is left with a lingering question. What truths lie submerged in the canals, hidden within the stones, or whispered by the legends of this enigmatic city, waiting for the curious, patient observer to uncover them? And as the tranquil waters and basalt foundations of Nan Madol recede behind us, our journey moves once more, this time into the high plains of southeastern Anatolia, where rolling hills and limestone outcrops conceal a sight that has upended our understanding of human prehistory. Here lies Gobekli Tepe, a complex of stone structures that dates back more than 11,000 years, predating the advent of agriculture and challenging everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. At first sight, Gobekli Tepe is awe-inspiring. Massive T-shaped pillars, some reaching over 6 meters in height and weighing tens of tons, rise from the earth in circular enclosures. The stones are carved with intricate reliefs depicting animals, lions, snakes, boars, scorpions, and abstract symbols that seem at once deliberate and enigmatic. The layout of the site, with its concentric rings, suggests intentionality, yet its scale and sophistication in such an early period leave scholars grappling with fundamental questions. Who built this, and why? Radiocarbon dating places Gobekli Tepe at roughly 9,600 BCE, a time when most human societies were still organized as small, nomadic hunter-gatherer groups. Yet the site displays monumental architecture, coordinated labor, and artistic skill that we typically associate with later, settled civilizations. How could societies without established agriculture wield transport or metal tools, quarry massive limestone pillars, transport them across uneven terrain, and erect them with such precision? Was there a social or spiritual organization capable of orchestrating hundreds of people in cooperative construction? Or are we missing a crucial piece of early human innovation? The carvings themselves are a source of endless fascination. Some reliefs seem symbolic, while others depict creatures in dynamic, almost narrative poses. Are these representations of mythology, ritual, or observations of the natural world? Certain images, birds, snakes, predatory animals, could suggest cosmological significance or shamanistic belief systems. Do they encode stories, seasonal markers, or moral lessons meant to guide a society still learning to survive and thrive? And if so, why has no contemporaneous written language been found to corroborate these ideas? Gobekli Tepe also presents a series of structural mysteries. The pillars are arranged in circular enclosures, often with a pair of larger central stones flanked by smaller pillars. Some researchers propose that the design reflects cosmological or ritualistic concepts, possibly aligning with solar or lunar events, though no consensus exists. Were these circles ceremonial centers, proto-temples, or social gathering spaces? And why, after centuries of use, were many enclosures deliberately buried under tons of earth, as if to hide or preserve them for reasons unknown? The very act of burial raises further questions. Who ordered the covering of these monumental structures, and why? Some scholars suggest ritual closure, a practice intended to sanctify or decommission sacred spaces. Others propose practical motives, such as defense or preservation. But the deliberate nature of the burial and its consistency across multiple enclosures implies a cultural or spiritual significance that we cannot fully decode. Could this act itself hold clues to the beliefs and priorities of early human society, clues that remain tantalizingly out of reach? Speculative interpretations abound. Some theorists suggest Gobekli Tepe may have been a focal point for early astronomical observation, or that the site reflects a symbolic map of the natural world. Others propose that it represents evidence of a proto-civilization capable of complex thought, long before the rise of cities, writing, or agriculture. And while mainstream archaeology cautions against overstating these possibilities, the very existence of such a site forces us to reconsider assumptions about the timeline of human cognitive and social development. The scale of the stones and the precision of their placement continue to intrigue engineers and archaeologists alike. Some pillars were quarried kilometers away, transported across rugged terrain, and set into circular foundations with remarkable stability. Without wheeled vehicles or draft animals, how did early humans achieve this? Were ingenious methods, ramped levers, coordinated teams, or unknown mechanical techniques employed to accomplish what seems nearly impossible? Or does the site suggest a level of communal organization and skill previously unrecognized in hunter-gatherer societies? Walking among the enclosures today, one is struck by the interplay of stone and landscape. The pillars rise in quiet majesty, casting long shadows across the undulating hills, while the carvings seem to animate in the shifting sunlight. There is a palpable sense of ritual and intentionality, as if the space itself were designed to impress, instruct, or inspire awe. Every stone appears deliberate, each carving purposeful, yet the full meaning remains tantalizingly just beyond reach. Despite decades of study, Gobekli Tepe resists definitive explanation. Was it a religious center, a gathering place for seasonal rituals, or an early expression of human ambition and cooperation? Did the site influence later developments in architecture, urbanization, or social organization? And what other knowledge, ritual, technical, or symbolic, might be encoded in its stones, waiting for future researchers to decode? Gobekli Tepe reminds us that the story of human civilization is far from linear. It challenges our assumptions about early societies, monumental construction, and the interplay between spiritual and social life. Its stones are silent witnesses to a lost era, preserving questions as much as answers. And as the sun dips behind the Anatolian hills, illuminating the carved pillars in golden light, one cannot help but wonder, what truths remain buried beneath the earth, hidden in plain sight, or erased by time? How much of human ingenuity, belief, and communal vision has yet to be fully understood? Gobekli Tepe endures not only as a testament to early human creativity, but also as a profound reminder of the mysteries that continue to lie at the heart of our past. And as the stone circles and monumental pillars of Gobekli Tepe fade into the Anatolian horizon, our journey moves westward across the Levant, to a valley nestled between the Anti-Lebanon Mountains and the Bekaa Plains. Here, under a sky that has witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall, lies a site of extraordinary scale and ambition, the Temples of Baalbek. At first sight, Baalbek is overwhelming. The ruins of the Temple of Jupiter dominate the landscape, its colossal columns, some standing over 20 meters tall, casting long shadows across a vast courtyard. Nearby, the Temple of Bacchus, with its richly carved friezes and massive stone blocks, suggests a level of craftsmanship and precision that continues to defy easy explanation. Even the foundations themselves, composed of some of the largest stone blocks ever quarried and moved by human hands, provoke awe and curiosity. Stones such as the famed trilithon weigh hundreds of tons, perfectly fitted with no mortar, a feat that raises questions about the engineering knowledge of their builders. Baalbek has a long and complex history, tracing its roots to Phoenician and pre-Phoenician times, later expanded by Greeks and Romans. Its temples were centers of religious, political, and social life, dedicated to deities whose identities and worship practices evolved over centuries. Archaeological studies confirm that the Romans were responsible for much of the monumental architecture visible today, yet the scale and precision of certain stones suggest that earlier cultures may have laid foundations that have been obscured or reinterpreted over time. Who first envisioned such monumental construction, and how did successive civilizations achieve the continuity necessary to realize it? The size and placement of the stones continue to fascinate engineers and historians alike. How were blocks weighing hundreds of tons transported from distant quarries, lifted and positioned with such exactitude without the cranes and machinery we take for granted today? Ancient texts and reliefs hint at elaborate systems of ramps, pulleys, and manpower. Yet these explanations leave many unanswered questions. Could there have been techniques, now lost to time, that allowed humans to manipulate these stones with a precision that still challenges modern understanding? Beyond the technical marvels, Baalbek's layout and design invite deeper speculation. The orientation of the temples, their alignment with the surrounding landscape, and their colossal scale suggest more than mere religious devotion. Were the architects encoding cosmological knowledge, creating a symbolic map of the heavens upon the earth? Some researchers propose that the site may have been used for astronomical observation or ritual activities timed with celestial events, though definitive evidence remains elusive. Could the combination of engineering, art, and ritual at Baalbek reflect a level of scientific and spiritual integration lost to history? The architectural details themselves are striking. Columns are carved with fluted shafts and Corinthian capitals, while reliefs depict intricate motifs of flora, fauna, and divine symbolism. Some carvings seem almost otherworldly in their precision, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of proportion, geometry, and aesthetics. How much of this knowledge was practical, intended to impress and endure, and how much symbolic, designed to communicate concepts of power, divinity, or cosmic order? Speculative interpretations of Baalbek extend into more enigmatic territory. Some theorists suggest that the site's colossal blocks indicate knowledge of advanced mechanical or engineering principles, lost to subsequent generations. Others propose that the enormous scale was intended not just to awe, but to convey metaphysical or spiritual truths, possibly creating a space that amplified ritual or symbolic energy. Could Baalbek represent the intersection of human ingenuity and transcendent purpose, a place where stone, labor, and belief converge to produce something enduring and extraordinary? Walking among the ruins today, the sense of scale is humbling. The trilithon blocks alone, some stretching over 19 meters in length, dwarf the surrounding landscape. Courtyards, platforms, and porticos form a geometric rhythm that draws the eye upward, toward the sky that the ancients must have revered as both a physical and symbolic horizon. One can imagine priests, engineers, and laborers working in concert, each movement and decision contributing to a monumental vision whose full meaning remains partially obscured by time. Despite centuries of study, Baalbek continues to withhold its full story. Were the massive stones purely functional, purely symbolic, or a combination of both? How much of the original layout and design reflects Roman ingenuity, and how much derives from earlier, lost cultures whose knowledge and methods remain enigmatic? And if certain techniques or concepts were forgotten over millennia, what other secrets might lie buried beneath the foundation stones, hidden in plain sight? The temples of Baalbek endure as both achievement and mystery. They are testaments to human ambition, skill, and devotion, yet they also stand as silent questions, challenging us to reconcile what we know with what seems almost impossible. Every stone, every column, every carving invites us to consider the limits of our understanding, the ingenuity of those who came before, and the possibility that some knowledge may forever remain just out of reach. As the sun sets over the Bekaa Valley, illuminating the temples in golden light and casting long shadows across the massive stones, one is left with a lingering thought. What truths, what methods, and what intentions lie encoded in the monumental architecture of Baalbek, waiting to be deciphered? And how many layers of history, technique, and belief remain hidden within this extraordinary site, challenging each generation to look closer, think deeper, and wonder at the remarkable feats of humanity's distant past? And as the monumental stones of Baalbek recede into the golden light of the Bekaa Valley, our journey now carries us southward along the Nile, to a land where the river winds through sun-baked deserts and lush floodplains, and where the echoes of two great civilizations intertwine. Here, amidst the hills and sands of modern-day Sudan, stand the Pyramids of Nubia, less famous than their Egyptian counterparts, yet no less extraordinary, and in many ways more enigmatic. At first glance, the Nubian pyramids are striking in their distinctiveness. Unlike the broad, gently sloping pyramids of Giza, these structures are tall and narrow, their steep angles rising sharply toward the sky. Constructed primarily of sandstone and granite, they are smaller in base but often taller in proportion, creating an impression of elegance and verticality that seems to defy the arid landscape. Hundreds of these pyramids, estimated at over 200, dot the desert around ancient royal cemeteries such as Meroe and Nuri, forming vast necropolises that stretch over the horizon, each one marking the resting place of kings, queens, and elite figures of the Kushite civilization. The Nubian pyramids date from approximately 800 BCE to 350 CE, a period during which the Kingdom of Kush flourished as a major political and cultural force. Kushites ruled not only in Nubia, but at times also exerted power over Egypt, and their rulers embraced a rich tradition of monumental architecture. Yet despite this historical context, many aspects of the pyramid's construction, purpose, and symbolism remain elusive. How were these relatively small societies able to quarry, transport, and assemble stones with such precision and scale? And why did they choose this distinct, sharply pointed pyramid design rather than the more familiar Egyptian style? The layout of Nubian pyramid cemeteries presents further intrigue. The pyramids are often accompanied by chapels, offering tables, and intricately carved funerary artifacts, suggesting complex burial rituals and a deep concern with the afterlife. Yet the orientation and spatial arrangement of the pyramids sometimes appear inconsistent, raising questions about whether local topography, spiritual symbolism, or dynastic hierarchy determined their placement. Were these arrangements purely functional, or did they encode religious or cosmological knowledge that we have yet to fully understand? Carvings and inscriptions, though less abundant than in Egypt, provide tantalizing glimpses into the beliefs and practices of the Kushite rulers. Some depict deities, ritual scenes, and hieroglyphic texts, blending Egyptian influence with distinct Nubian elements. Could the pyramids themselves be a form of symbolic communication, conveying authority, divine favor, and the aspirations of a civilization seeking to assert its power across a harsh landscape? And to what extent might the unique proportions and construction methods reflect practical adaptation, spiritual intention, or both? One of the most puzzling aspects of the Nubian pyramids is the precision and scale of their construction despite limited resources. Some pyramids rise to heights exceeding 30 meters, yet they were built without large-scale machines, cranes, or draft animals. Stones were quarried from nearby sources, yet the effort required to transport, carve, and erect them with such exactitude remains staggering. Could lost techniques, sophisticated communal organization, or innovations in leverage and engineering explain these feats? Or do these monuments hint at a level of technical understanding that challenges our assumptions about ancient Nubian societies? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers suggest that the sharp angles and verticality of the pyramids may have been intended to channel spiritual energy, aligning with celestial phenomena or ritualized pathways for the soul's journey. Others propose that the density of pyramids within certain necropolises reflects a societal emphasis on lineage, power, and continuity, a visual manifestation of dynastic memory etched into stone. And yet, for all the study, the precise methods of construction, the full symbolism of their form, and the social mechanisms enabling such architectural concentration remain partially obscured. Walking among the pyramids of Meroe or Nuri, one is struck by a quiet majesty. The desert wind scours the stones, their faces weathered by centuries of sun and sand, yet their presence remains commanding. The structures rise in clusters, like silent sentinels of a forgotten world, evoking awe not only for their physical scale, but for the complexity of the society that built them. Every steep slope, every carved chapel, every shadowed chamber speaks to human ambition, belief, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world that endures beyond death. Despite decades of archaeological work, many questions persist. How did the Kushites innovate in construction, design, and organization to achieve these feats? Why did their pyramid style diverge so radically from Egyptian precedent? What other tombs, artifacts, or records might remain undiscovered beneath shifting sands, ready to illuminate aspects of the civilization that are still unknown? And perhaps most compellingly, what does the concentration of these pyramids tell us about the cultural, spiritual, and political priorities of a kingdom that has largely been overshadowed by the more famous monuments of its northern neighbor? The Pyramids of Nubia are a testament to ingenuity, ambition, and enduring mystery. They challenge us to reconsider the narrative of ancient monumental architecture, reminding us that human creativity and technical skill flourished in diverse and sometimes unexpected places. And as the sun sets over the desert, casting long shadows across the pyramid's steep faces, one cannot help but wonder, what truths, techniques, and lost knowledge remain hidden beneath the sands, waiting for patient observation and thoughtful inquiry to reveal the full story of these remarkable structures. And as the towering pyramids of Nubia fade into the desert haze behind us, our journey shifts once more, from monumental stone to the rolling green hills of southern England, where the landscape itself becomes a canvas of mystery. Here, etched into the chalky slopes of the Berkshire Downs, lies a figure that has puzzled observers for centuries: the Uffington White Horse. From a distance, the White Horse emerges as a striking silhouette against the hillside, a sinuous, abstract figure over 100 meters long, its form defined by chalk that gleams in the sunlight. Unlike the detailed animal carvings of later periods, its lines are intentionally geometric, stylized, and surprisingly minimalist, yet they convey motion, grace, and power. The scale of the figure is such that it can only be fully appreciated from above, or from the careful observation points along the surrounding landscape. The very act of seeing it in its entirety challenges the observer to consider perspective, intention, and purpose. The origins of the Uffington White Horse remain the subject of ongoing debate. Excavations suggest that it dates to the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age, around 1000 to 800 BCE, making it older than most other hill figures in Britain. Yet the exact reason for its creation and the identity of those who carved it remain shrouded in uncertainty. Was it a territorial marker, a religious symbol, or an emblem of local identity? And if it served a ritualistic purpose, what beliefs and practices guided its creation and maintenance? One of the most intriguing aspects of the White Horse is its sheer permanence. Unlike temporary art or structures, this figure was intentionally designed to endure for generations. Its chalk-filled trenches periodically refreshed by communities over centuries. What motivated such sustained labor, often in exposed and challenging hillside conditions? Was it devotion to a deity, allegiance to a clan, or perhaps a practical function intertwined with ceremonial observance of the seasons, sun, or stars? The figure's abstraction raises further questions. Its stylized form departs from naturalistic representation, suggesting symbolic intent rather than mere depiction. Some researchers see it as a representation of a horse associated with solar or fertility cults, a recurring motif in Indo-European iconography. Others suggest that it may have been part of a broader ritual landscape, aligned with nearby ancient monuments, burial mounds, or ritual enclosures, forming a network of meaning that is still only partially understood. Could the White Horse be part of a map of spiritual, social, or territorial significance, a deliberate integration of art, landscape, and cosmology? Archaeological investigations provide tantalizing clues, but also deepen the mystery. Flint tools, buried deposits, and soil analysis indicate careful planning and considerable labor, yet there are no contemporary written records to explain its purpose. The maintenance of the figure itself would have required communal effort, suggesting social organization and shared cultural values. Could the White Horse represent an early example of landscape art used to communicate identity, power, or ritual knowledge across generations? Or might it be a more cryptic symbol, its meaning intentionally obscured by time? Speculative theories extend the enigma. Some researchers propose astronomical alignments, suggesting that the horse may have been positioned in relation to solstices, lunar cycles, or prominent stars, functioning as a celestial marker for ritual observation or agricultural timing. Others explore folkloric interpretations, linking the figure to mythical horses or legendary heroes whose stories have been passed down orally. Yet despite these theories, none can be confirmed, and the deliberate abstraction of the figure resists easy interpretation. The surrounding landscape adds another layer of mystery. The White Horse is part of a broader ritual topography, with hill forts, burial mounds, and ancient pathways nearby. How did these features interact with the figure, and what social or ceremonial networks did they represent? Did the placement of the horse reflect a conscious integration of natural topography, human settlement, and spiritual belief, creating a landscape imbued with layered significance that guided generations of observers and participants? Walking along the chalk path today, the White Horse evokes a profound sense of continuity. The hillside, windswept and open, invites contemplation of time, labor, and the human desire to leave a mark on the world. One can imagine the communities who first carved it, standing together, coordinating their efforts, and understanding that their work would speak across centuries, communicating meaning to generations yet unborn. The figure embodies both permanence and mystery, a reminder of human creativity and devotion in the absence of written record. Yet, even after centuries of study, the Uffington White Horse continues to withhold its full story. Was it a spiritual symbol, a social statement, or an early form of public art? What rituals, beliefs, or practical functions might it have served in its original context? And what might be lost forever, obscured by the passage of time, erosion, and cultural transformation? The White Horse is a testament to the human impulse to create, to communicate, and to imprint meaning onto the landscape itself. Its chalked lines, enduring against wind and weather, invite reflection on the sophistication and intentionality of early communities. As the sun sets over the Berkshire Downs, casting long shadows across the hillside, one is left with a lingering sense of wonder. What other secrets, symbolic meanings and intentions remain hidden in the landscape, waiting for careful eyes and open minds to perceive them. The mystery endures, silent yet compelling, across millennia. And as the chalky silhouette of the Uffington white horse fades into the rolling green of the Berkshire Downs behind us, our journey now carries us far south, across the savannas and rugged landscapes of southern Africa, to a site whose stone walls whisper of grandeur, mystery, and forgotten power. Here, amidst granite hills and the sweeping plains of modern-day Zimbabwe, lie the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, a monumental city whose scale and sophistication continue to captivate archaeologists and travelers alike. At first sight, Great Zimbabwe is imposing. Massive walls of carefully stacked granite rise from the earth without mortar, curving organically along hilltops and plateaus, forming enclosures, towers, and passageways. The largest of these structures, the Great Enclosure, is the most extensive ancient stone construction in sub-Saharan Africa, its walls soaring up to 11 meters high and extending over 250 meters in circumference. The stonework is precise. Each block fits snugly against its neighbor, with corners and curves that suggest both engineering skill and aesthetic intention. Walking among these stones, one is immediately struck by a sense of both human ambition and enduring mystery. The site flourished between roughly the 11th and 15th centuries CE, serving as the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, a polity that controlled trade routes and resources across southern Africa. Archaeological evidence indicates that Great Zimbabwe was a hub of commerce, connecting gold, ivory, and other goods with merchants from as far away as the Indian Ocean coast. Yet, for all we know of its economic and political significance, much about the city's construction, social organization, and symbolic meaning remains elusive. How did the builders quarry and transport such massive granite blocks, often without advanced machinery, and how did they plan and organize a city of such scale? The layout of the ruins offers tantalizing clues. The site consists of three main areas: the hill complex, the Great Enclosure, and the valley complex. The hill complex, perched atop a rocky outcrop, likely served as the royal residence or spiritual center, suggesting that authority was centralized and visually emphasized through elevation. The Great Enclosure, with its towering curved walls, may have served as a ceremonial or administrative hub, while the valley complex houses numerous smaller structures and evidence of daily life. How much of this spatial organization reflects practical necessity, and how much was designed to convey social hierarchy, religious power, or cosmological symbolism? One of the most remarkable aspects of Great Zimbabwe is the skill and precision of its stone masonry. Unlike many other civilizations, the builders achieved stability without mortar, relying solely on the careful shaping and placement of massive granite blocks. Corners curve seamlessly, walls taper subtly, and enclosures follow natural contours, suggesting not only technical expertise, but also a deep understanding of the landscape. How was such precision achieved, and what knowledge, now lost to time, enabled a society to construct enduring monuments with seemingly minimal technology? Artifacts recovered from the site add to the intrigue. Soapstone carvings, pottery, and intricate beads hint at a rich cultural and religious life, yet many objects remain unexplained in terms of their symbolic or ceremonial significance. Some researchers suggest that the soapstone birds, perched atop certain walls, may have held spiritual or political meaning, perhaps representing royal authority, ancestral spirits, or cosmological principles. But the lack of written records leaves these interpretations open-ended, forcing us to rely on careful observation, analogy, and imagination to reconstruct the beliefs of Great Zimbabwe's inhabitants. The ruins also raise questions about social and political organization. Coordinating the construction of massive enclosures and towers would have required labor management, resource allocation, and long-term planning. Did the society rely on centralized authority, religious obligation, or communal cooperation to achieve these feats? And what motivated such monumental effort in a pre-industrial context? Was it devotion, political ambition, or the desire to leave a lasting mark upon the landscape that would assert power and prestige for generations? Speculative theories extend the mystery further. Some propose that certain enclosures align with cardinal directions or celestial phenomena, hinting at ritual or astronomical knowledge embedded within the architecture. Others suggest symbolic interpretations, proposing that walls and passageways may reflect social hierarchies, cosmological beliefs, or spiritual journeys. Yet the true intent behind the city's design, the precise meaning of its art, and the rituals practiced within its walls remain tantalizingly out of reach, offering only hints of understanding. Walking among the ruins today, the scale and ambition of Great Zimbabwe are humbling. The granite walls, curving around hills and plateaus, evoke a silent majesty, while smaller structures speak to daily life, trade, and community. The interplay of architecture, landscape, and material culture suggests a society deeply attuned to both practical and symbolic concerns, yet one that deliberately leaves many questions unanswered. Every corner, every enclosure, every stone seems to whisper of power, devotion, and human ingenuity, inviting observers to reflect on the extraordinary capabilities of a civilization largely obscured by time. Despite centuries of research, Great Zimbabwe continues to resist full comprehension. How did the builders achieve such monumental construction with minimal tools? What social, spiritual, or political systems enabled a city of this scale to flourish? And what secrets, buried beneath the granite walls or lost in oral traditions, might further illuminate the life, beliefs, and ambitions of this remarkable civilization? The Great Zimbabwe ruins endure as a testament to human creativity, ambition, and enduring mystery. They challenge our assumptions about pre-industrial societies, monumental construction, and the interplay between power and symbolism. As the sun dips low over the granite hills, casting long shadows across the curving walls, one is left with a profound question. What remains hidden in the stones, the artifacts, and the landscape of Great Zimbabwe, waiting for patient observation, careful study, and an open mind to uncover the full story of this extraordinary city? And as the granite walls of Great Zimbabwe fade into the undulating African plains behind us, our journey now takes us far north, across oceans and continents, to a rugged coastline where the land meets the restless waves of the North Atlantic. Here, in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, lies a landscape of striking geometry and otherworldly beauty. The Giant's Causeway, a formation of interlocking basalt columns that has fascinated observers for centuries. At first sight, the Giant's Causeway is mesmerizing. Tens of thousands of hexagonal pillars stretch from the cliffside into the sea, forming stepping stone terraces that seem almost deliberately crafted. From above, the columns appear as a vast, abstract mosaic, each stone fitting precisely with its neighbors, creating a sense of order that contrasts sharply with the surrounding wild, untamed landscape. Some columns rise several meters above the others, their flat tops worn smooth by wind, rain, and countless footsteps, forming a natural platform that invites exploration and reflection. Geologists explain that the causeway was formed roughly 50 to 60 million years ago, during intense volcanic activity in the region. As lava cooled, it contracted and fractured into the remarkable polygonal columns we see today. Mainstream science attributes the uniformity and hexagonal shapes to natural processes of cooling and contraction. Yet even this explanation leaves questions about scale and precision. How could molten rock, cooled in seemingly chaotic conditions, produced tens of thousands of interlocking columns of such striking regularity? And why do certain sections form almost perfect geometric patterns, while others appear irregular and unpredictable? Beyond the geological processes, the Giant's Causeway has long inspired human imagination. Local legend tells of the giant Fionn MacCumhail, Finn McCool, who constructed the stepping stones as a bridge to Scotland to confront a rival. The story evokes awe, blending myth with landscape in a way that has persisted for centuries, suggesting that humans have always sensed something extraordinary about this place. Could such folklore encode a deeper cultural response to natural phenomena? Or does it hint at an ancient recognition of patterns in nature that modern observers are only beginning to appreciate? The Causeway also raises questions about perception and scale. Walking among the columns, one becomes aware of the way geometry, repetition, and perspective interact with the surrounding environment. The uniform hexagons, while mathematically striking, are embedded in a landscape of cliffs, caves, and tidal pools, where nature's randomness asserts itself. What accounts for the uncanny balance between order and irregularity? Was it purely geological chance, or did the region's unique volcanic and erosional conditions conspire to create something that feels almost designed? Some speculative interpretations extend even further. Researchers and enthusiasts have pointed out alignments, patterns, and features that seem to carry symbolic or navigational significance. Certain clusters of columns form straight paths or terraces that, in theory, could be traced to astronomical events, tidal patterns, or other natural cycles. Are these alignments accidental, or might ancient observers have understood and interacted with the formation in ways that we have yet to reconstruct? Could the Causeway have served as a ceremonial, observational, or even ritualistic site long before formal records were written? The scale of the formation is equally remarkable. The largest columns reach over 12 meters high, and the expanse of the Causeway covers roughly 40,000 columns, creating a sense of infinite repetition. Some researchers have speculated about the sheer labor and imagination required to navigate such terrain in prehistoric times, whether for practical purposes, myth-making, or ritual practice. Did early inhabitants perceive this formation as sacred? And if so, how did it shape cultural identity, folklore, or settlement patterns along the coastline? Scientific studies have revealed even more complexity. Variations in column size, spacing, and orientation reflect subtle shifts in cooling rates, lava composition, and subsequent erosion. Yet the patterns, so consistent over tens of thousands of stones, continue to evoke wonder. How much of the Causeway's visual regularity is purely natural, and how much is amplified by human perception, our inclination to recognize patterns and impose order on the world? In a sense, the site invites both scientific inquiry and imaginative speculation, blurring the line between natural phenomenon and cultural significance. Walking along the basalt platforms today, the Giant's Causeway exudes a quiet majesty. The Atlantic wind lashes against the cliffs, sea spray drifts over the stone terraces, and the rhythmic crashing of waves provides a constant, almost hypnotic soundtrack. Amidst this environment, one feels the tension between geological time and human experience, between the deliberate precision of hexagonal columns and the unpredictable chaos of nature surrounding them. The Causeway seems simultaneously ancient and immediate, a place where the mind instinctively questions how and why it exists in its current form. Despite extensive study, the Giant's Causeway retains its sense of mystery. How precisely did geological processes produce such regularity over such a vast area? Why has this formation inspired stories, myths, and awe across centuries? What hidden narratives, scientific, cultural, or symbolic, remain embedded in the landscape, waiting to be discovered by those willing to look closely? The Giant's Causeway stands as both a natural marvel and a canvas for human curiosity. Its hexagonal columns, stretching toward the sea, remind us that nature can produce forms of astonishing regularity, yet also that human imagination seeks meaning, pattern, and story in every striking sight. As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the basalt terraces and turning the sea into a molten mirror, one is left with a lingering question. What secrets, patterns, or truths remain hidden within these stones, waiting for patient observation, reflection, and the willingness to wonder at the extraordinary interplay of nature, time, and human perception? And as the basalt columns of the Giant's Causeway fade behind us, their hexagonal forms disappearing into the mist and crashing waves, our journey turns once more, this time to the vast, wind-swept deserts of the Arabian Peninsula, where shifting sands conceal remnants of a city that has captured the imagination of explorers and historians alike. The lost city of Ubar. From the outset, Ubar is as elusive as it is legendary. Often referred to in ancient texts as Iram of the Pillars, it was described as a flourishing oasis at the heart of the frankincense trade, a crossroads where caravans traversed the inhospitable desert to exchange rare goods with distant lands. Travelers spoke of towering structures, bustling marketplaces, and walls that gleamed in the desert sun. Yet today, only traces remain. A scattering of foundations, a few depressions in the sand, and the faint outlines of ancient caravan tracks hinting at a once thriving settlement swallowed by time and environment. The mystery begins with the question of existence itself. For centuries, Ubar was thought to be purely myth, a city of legend recounted in the Quran, in Arab lore, and in the travelogues of medieval explorers. Was it a literal place, or a symbolic narrative of wealth, decadence, and divine judgment? The discovery of certain archaeological sites in the 1990s, aided by satellite imagery that revealed subsurface anomalies in Oman's deserts, suggested that at least some physical remains could correspond to these legends. Yet the evidence is fragmentary, raising as many questions as it answers. Archaeologists have identified ancient fortifications, water cisterns, and remnants of trade routes cutting across the Rub al-Khali, or empty quarter. These suggest that Ubar, or a network of settlements fulfilling a similar role, was integral to the region's economy, facilitating the transport of frankincense, myrrh, and other valuable commodities. Yet the scale and layout of these sites leave us wondering, how did communities survive in such an extreme environment, sustaining life and commerce in a desert with limited water and harsh temperatures? And what technologies or social systems enabled them to thrive for centuries before eventual abandonment? The narrative grows even more complex when we consider the city's abrupt disappearance. Ancient texts describe Ubar as being destroyed, buried under sand, or swallowed by the desert, sometimes interpreted as divine retribution for human excess. Geological studies reveal that desertification, shifting sand dunes, and the collapse of water sources likely played a role in depopulation. But was this collapse sudden or gradual? Could trade disruptions, resource depletion, or social upheaval have compounded environmental factors, hastening the city's demise? The interplay between natural forces and human decisions remains tantalizingly opaque. Speculative theories have further fueled the mystique of Ubar. Some researchers propose that its structures were aligned with ancient astronomical or navigational markers, facilitating trade and ritual practice in ways we are only beginning to understand. Others suggest that Ubar may not have been a single city, but rather a network of outposts, collectively remembered as a singular lost city in the oral and written record. Could the mythic grandeur of Ubar, amplified through centuries of storytelling, have exaggerated or conflated multiple settlements into a single legendary hub? The archaeological evidence itself is enigmatic, Excavations have revealed stone foundations, sections of walls, and remnants of pottery that hint at trade connections spanning Arabia, Mesopotamia, and the Indian subcontinent. Yet much of the site lies buried under shifting sands, preserved in patterns that are difficult to interpret. What stories remain encoded in these foundations, lost beneath centuries of desert storms? Could further discoveries reveal the city's social hierarchy, its governance, or the daily lives of those who once traversed its streets? Walking across the desert plains today, one senses both the enormity of human ambition and the fragility of human endeavor. The sun bleaches the sand, wind scours the remnants, and the faint outlines of roads and walls suggest a civilization that once orchestrated remarkable feats of engineering and trade. Yet all is silent now, and the desert seems indifferent to the rise and fall of those who labored here. The site is both tangible and spectral, a place where myth and material reality intertwine, leaving observers to reconcile the evidence with imagination, speculation, and historical record. Despite decades of investigation, Ubar continues to resist definitive explanation. Was it a singular city of legendary wealth, a cluster of smaller settlements, or primarily a story codified in oral tradition? How did its inhabitants manage water, trade, and survival in such a challenging environment? And crucially, what remains buried beneath the ever-shifting sands, waiting to illuminate the complex social, economic, and spiritual life of a civilization that has largely vanished from memory? The lost city of Ubar reminds us that human history is often fragile, subject to the forces of environment, time, and storytelling. Its ruins speak of ingenuity, commerce, and the capacity for human communities to flourish against the odds, but also of impermanence, the way even the greatest centers of activity can be swallowed by nature and forgotten by history. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor, one is left with a lingering sense of wonder. What truths, technologies, or civilizations remain hidden beneath the sands, waiting for those with patience, curiosity, and vision to uncover them? The mystery endures, as vast and shifting as the desert itself, and as the shifting sands of Arabia fade into memory behind us, carrying the story of the elusive city of Ubar, our journey now follows the Pacific coastline southward to the arid plains of southern Peru. Here lies one of the most enigmatic legacies of the ancient world, the Nazca civilization, whose secrets are etched not in stone or city walls, but upon the earth itself, visible only from a perspective high above the desert floor. Stretching across hundreds of square kilometers, the Nazca lines are a series of vast geoglyphs, some spanning hundreds of meters, depicting animals, humans, geometric shapes, and abstract forms. Viewed from ground level, they appear as simple scratches in the earth, yet from above, their scale and precision are revealed in staggering detail. Spirals, hummingbirds, monkeys, and spiders emerge from the desert sands, each line meticulously cleared of the reddish-brown iron oxide pebbles to expose the lighter-colored soil beneath. The result is a set of designs that has captivated archaeologists, pilots, and explorers for nearly a century. The Nazca lines were created by the Nazca culture, which flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE, a civilization known for advanced irrigation, ceramics, and textiles. Yet despite extensive study, the purpose of these enormous geoglyphs remains profoundly mysterious. Were they astronomical markers, mapping the movement of stars, solstices, and planets? Or were they ritual pathways designed to be walked during ceremonial observances, drawing human attention toward the gods above? Some researchers suggest a connection to water, a vital resource in the arid desert, proposing that the lines were linked to ceremonies intended to invoke rainfall. But none of these explanations fully accounts for the astonishing scale, complexity and variety of the designs. The sheer effort required to create the geoglyphs is astounding. Moving rocks and scraping away layers of earth across hundreds of meters demanded careful planning and coordination. Yet the Nazca people left no contemporary records explaining the methodology or meaning behind their work. How did they conceive such enormous figures with such precision without aerial perspective? Did they employ rudimentary surveying tools, mathematical knowledge, or a system of measurement lost to history? The precision, especially in geometric patterns and long straight lines that extend for kilometers, suggests remarkable ingenuity, skill, and foresight. Among the most puzzling aspects are the enormous animal and human figures. Some glyphs span over 300 meters, yet maintain proportional consistency and remarkable clarity. How could they have executed such designs with limited tools and without a vantage point from the air? Certain figures incorporate intersecting lines and complex symmetries, hinting at an understanding of geometry that rivals later civilizations. Could these patterns have served a symbolic, religious, or social function beyond the purely aesthetic, perhaps even acting as a visual language meant to communicate with celestial forces or to guide human ritual? Speculative interpretations of the Nazca lines abound. Some suggest they were pathways for ceremonial processions, while others propose astronomical observatories, mapping celestial events and agricultural cycles. Fringe theories suggest interaction with unknown technologies or even extraterrestrial influence, largely inspired by the necessity of aerial perspective to appreciate the full scope of the designs. While these latter ideas remain controversial, they underscore the profound mystery of the lines. How and why a civilization without flight could produce artwork designed to be fully comprehended from above. The environment itself deepens the enigma. The Nazca Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, with minimal rainfall, stable winds, and a flat landscape. These conditions preserved the lines for centuries, yet they also demanded careful planning and deep understanding of the terrain. Why did the Nazca choose this specific landscape? Was it simply practical, allowing their creations to endure? Or did the harsh, austere environment hold spiritual significance, shaping cultural expression in ways we are only beginning to appreciate? Walking among the smaller ground-level patterns today, one feels the intersection of human intent and natural endurance. The stones and scraped earth appear deceptively simple, yet they conceal a monumental achievement of design, coordination, and cultural expression. Each line, figure, and spiral invites contemplation of human purpose, devotion, and the capacity to create meaning on a scale that transcends ordinary perception. The desert, silent and timeless, preserves these marks as both evidence and enigma, allowing them to speak across centuries to observers willing to wonder and reflect. Despite decades of study, the Nazca lines continue to defy definitive explanation. How did the Nazca achieve such precision without aerial vantage? What messages, rituals, or beliefs were encoded in these massive earthworks? And what other figures, lines, or symbols might remain undiscovered beneath the sands, silently awaiting rediscovery? The intersection of artistry, mathematics, ritual, and environmental awareness hints at a sophistication that challenges assumptions about the technological and cultural capacities of ancient civilizations. The Nazca civilization reminds us that human ingenuity takes many forms, sometimes leaving its most profound expressions in landscapes rather than in stone or manuscript. The lines, enduring against wind, rain, and centuries of shifting sands, are a silent testament to ambition, ritual, and a desire to communicate across time and space. As the sun arcs over the Peruvian desert, casting elongated shadows across the figures and highlighting the contrast between scraped earth and surrounding terrain, one is left with a lingering question. What deeper knowledge, spiritual insight, or cultural sophistication remains hidden in the desert, waiting for those who seek to understand the secrets of the Nazca civilization. The mystery endures, etched in sand, stone, and human imagination, and as the arid desert of southern Peru recedes behind us, carrying the enigmatic geoglyphs of the Nazca civilization into memory, our journey now turns northward to the rugged, forested hills of northern Spain, where the darkness of hidden caves preserves the earliest whispers of human creativity, the cave paintings of Altamira. At first glance, Altamira is a place of quiet mystery. The cave mouth opens into a shadowed recess where rough-hewn walls curve inward, forming chambers that have been untouched for millennia. Within these chambers, the walls are alive with color and form. Images of bison, horses, deer, and abstract symbols, rendered with astonishing skill and vibrancy. The artists employed mineral pigments of red, black, and ochre, sometimes accentuating natural contours in the stone to give the animals a lifelike three-dimensionality. Light, flickering from primitive torches, would have brought these images to life, creating a dynamic interplay of shadow and form that must have been both mesmerizing and profound. The paintings date from approximately 36,000 years ago, during the Upper Paleolithic period, offering a rare glimpse into the symbolic world of early Homo sapiens. Yet their existence raises immediate questions. How did these early humans develop the technical skill to mix pigments, apply them with brushes or by blowing through hollow reeds, and conceptualize such detailed representations of animals? Were these purely decorative, or did they serve ritualistic or communicative purposes beyond our current understanding? And how did these images come to occupy remote chambers deep within the cave, spaces that are difficult to access and often inhospitable? The composition of the paintings is itself remarkable. Animals are depicted in motion, heads turned, legs poised, muscles defined, suggesting acute observation and understanding of anatomy and behavior. In some instances, the artists layered pigments, creating depth and a sense of perspective rarely associated with such early periods of human history. Were these paintings intended to tell stories, convey knowledge about hunting, or serve as a means of influencing the natural world through symbolic power? Or were they perhaps expressions of spiritual or shamanic experience, where the cave became a sacred space, a bridge between the material and invisible worlds? Intriguingly, the location of the paintings within Altamira suggests intentionality beyond mere aesthetic choice. Many images are placed deep within the cave, far from the entrance, where natural light is minimal. This placement may indicate that viewing the paintings was a carefully controlled, perhaps ritualistic experience. Could the sequence of images, the arrangement of animals, or their interaction with the contours of the cave walls have held symbolic or ceremonial significance that we can no longer fully interpret? And if so, what does this reveal about the cognitive and cultural sophistication of these early artists? The techniques employed at Altamira continue to astonish researchers. Pigments were derived from iron oxides, manganese, and charcoal, combined with binders that allowed the colors to endure for tens of thousands of years. The use of natural rock formations to enhance the realism of figures suggests an advanced understanding of both the medium and the environment. How did these early humans experiment, refine, and transmit such techniques within their communities? Was there a formal tradition of teaching, or were these skills passed through observation, imitation, and collective experience? Speculative interpretations add further layers to the mystery. Some scholars suggest the paintings were part of ritual hunting magic, intended to ensure success in the pursuit of game. Others propose a shamanic or spiritual function, where the cave served as a liminal space for encounters with otherworldly entities or ancestral spirits. Certain abstract symbols and dot patterns found alongside figurative art hint at proto-writing or symbolic codification, a precursor to the complex systems of communication that would emerge tens of thousands of years later. Could these marks reflect an early attempt to structure thought, memory, or social knowledge encoded in the walls of the cave for generations to come? The preservation of Altamira itself is remarkable. The stable microclimate of the cave, combined with careful burial of some chambers and, in modern times, limited human interference, has kept pigments vivid and forms distinct across millennia. Yet this preservation also highlights the fragility of human expression. Even slight changes in humidity, light exposure, or human contact can erode these images, reminding us that these early works are simultaneously enduring and perilously vulnerable. What other hidden chambers might contain artwork, symbols, or inscriptions yet to be discovered, lying silent and untouched beneath the earth? Walking through Altamira, one feels the intimate connection between human intention, natural environment, and artistic expression. The flicker of torchlight across painted bison evokes not just skill, but reverence, a deliberate engagement with the world that transcends survival and hints at contemplation, imagination, and symbolic thought. Each figure, each curve of pigment, invites reflection on the capacity of early humans to observe, interpret, and communicate with depth and meaning. Yet, even after decades of study, Altamira retains its mysteries. How did these Paleolithic artists conceive of complex representations without precedent? What rituals, beliefs, or social structures accompanied the creation of these images? And what additional secrets lie hidden in the unexamined recesses of the cave, waiting for patient observation and careful investigation to reveal them? The cave paintings of Altamira endure as a testament to human creativity, perception, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world. They remind us that the impulse to express, to interpret, and to connect with something greater than oneself is not a product of civilization alone, but of human nature itself, stretching back tens of thousands of years. As light fades across the ancient rock walls, one is left with a profound question. What truths, beliefs, and knowledge of the world remain encoded in these images, waiting for us to understand, and what might still lie hidden deep in the shadows of the caves beyond our current gaze? The mystery remains, eternal and compelling, inviting us to wonder at the origins of human imagination. And as the silent shadows of Altamira's cave paintings fade behind us, carrying the echoes of Paleolithic artists into memory, our journey now moves across oceans to the turquoise waters of the North Atlantic, near the shores of the Bahamian archipelago, where the sea conceals one of the most perplexing underwater formations ever discovered, the Bimini Road. At first glance, the Bimini Road appears deceptively ordinary, a series of submerged limestone blocks stretching nearly a kilometer along the shallow ocean floor near North Bimini Island. The blocks, some several meters across, are arranged in linear formations, intersecting at seemingly precise angles, resembling an ancient roadway or a stone wall. The ocean's currents ripple across the surface, and the sunlight filtering through the water casts shifting patterns over the stones, creating an eerie, almost hypnotic spectacle. To the casual observer, it might seem a natural feature, yet the geometric arrangement invites closer inspection, demanding questions that remain frustratingly unanswered. The Bimini Road was first brought to attention in 1968, when local divers and researchers noticed its unusual linearity and alignment. Since then, it has been explored extensively, with divers documenting patterns, stone sizes, and orientations. Radiocarbon dating of nearby marine organisms suggests that the formation has been submerged for thousands of years, though precise dating of the stones themselves remains elusive. Could this formation represent a fragment of a human-built structure, predating known civilizations in the Americas? Or is it the result of natural geological processes, limestone fracturing, erosion, and sedimentation, that coincidentally produced patterns suggestive of intention? The arrangement of the stones is what captivates and perplexes in equal measure. Many blocks appear to form right angles, creating a pathway-like impression, while others seem to interlock in a manner that implies design. Some researchers note that the spacing between the blocks is remarkably uniform, raising the possibility of deliberate human placement. Yet the stones themselves bear no inscriptions or markings that can conclusively link them to any known culture. How could a civilization capable of constructing such a formation remain absent from historical records? And if it is natural, what processes could produce such geometrically precise arrangements over hundreds of meters underwater? Speculation has only fueled the mystery. Some enthusiasts connect the Bimini Road with the legend of Atlantis, proposing that the formation is a surviving remnant of a lost civilization described by Plato, its stone highways swallowed by the rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Others suggest a more pragmatic theory, that it was part of a prehistoric shoreline settlement, now submerged due to post-glacial sea level rise. Both interpretations face significant challenges, yet the allure of a connection between myth, archaeology, and submerged landscape remains compelling. Could these stones hold clues to human habitation far earlier than we currently understand? The geological perspective offers both insight and ambiguity. Scientists have observed similar formations elsewhere, where natural processes, fracturing along bedding plains, tidal forces, and limestone erosion, produce straight lines and right angles that can mimic artificial construction. Yet the scale, continuity, and apparent alignment of the Bimini Road make purely natural explanations feel incomplete to some observers. How often does nature produce structures that seem to exhibit purpose, only to be revealed upon closer study as coincidental? And in the case of Bimini, is coincidence enough to account for the sheer linearity and consistent patterning across hundreds of meters? The Bimini Road also raises questions about perception and expectation. Viewed from above, the lines appear continuous and intentional. Viewed from within the water, one perceives a fragmented, shifting formation, shaped as much by light, current, and angle of observation as by the stones themselves. How much of the enigma is inherent in the rocks, and how much resides in the human mind, compelled to seek pattern, order, and meaning even in the midst of ambiguity? This interplay between natural formation and human interpretation is central to the enduring fascination of the site. Despite decades of exploration, the Bimini Road remains enigmatic. Divers continue to map the formation, yet no definitive evidence has emerged to confirm either human construction or natural origin. Artifacts, tools, or cultural debris are conspicuously absent, leaving open the possibility that the formation predates known civilizations, or that it is simply a geological curiosity that coincidentally echoes the forms and intentions of human design. How many secrets lie hidden beneath sand, silt, and coral, awaiting discovery by the curious, patient, and imaginative observer? Swimming above the submerged stones today, one senses both the immensity of time and the delicate balance between natural processes and human imagination. The Bimini Road stretches into the distance, its pale limestone blocks contrasting with the vibrant blue of the surrounding ocean. Light dances across the formations, revealing angles, edges, and alignments that seem almost deliberate. It is a place where the boundaries between myth, archaeology, and geology blur, challenging our assumptions about what is possible, both in human history and in nature itself. The Bimini Road invites contemplation, curiosity, and humility. Was it a pathway for humans now lost to history, a ceremonial structure, or merely an extraordinary accident of nature? What stories, knowledge, or technological capabilities could it conceal, if any, beneath its submerged surface? And crucially, How many other enigmatic landscapes, drowned and hidden by rising seas or the passage of time, await rediscovery, quietly challenging our understanding of the past? As the waves ripple gently across the limestone, one is left with a profound sense of awe, a reminder that the earth still holds mysteries where stone and water converge that resist easy explanation. The Bimini Road endures as both a natural marvel and a puzzle, inviting us to ponder the intersection of human history, legend, and the enigmatic patterns of the world beneath the sea. What truths, if any, lie encoded in these submerged stones, and what will it take for us to uncover them? The mystery remains, as persistent and tantalizing as the ocean currents themselves. Drifting from the last mystery into the next, the landscape shifts, almost imperceptibly at first, until rugged sandstone rises like ancient, half-forgotten monuments on the horizon. The terrain feels older here, as though it has been waiting far longer for someone to listen. And tucked within the sheer red cliffs of the American Southwest, sheltered in alcoves carved by time and weather, lie the haunting remains of a people whose story is equal parts archaeology and enigma. The cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloans, often called the Anasazi. At first glance, these structures seem impossibly placed, high above narrow canyons, balanced on small ledges, woven seamlessly into natural cavities in the rock. Blocks of sandstone fit with surprising precision, plastered with mud mortar that has endured centuries of heat, cold, wind, and silence. There is a strange calm in these places. Even now, when the sun touches the cliff walls at dawn or slips below the horizon in the evening, the dwellings seem to glow from within, as if the stone still remembers the warmth of the people who once lived here. Archaeologists tell us the ancestral Puebloans occupied this region for at least 1,000 years, developing intricate agricultural systems, astronomical knowledge, and complex social structures. The cliff dwellings, some perched more than 100 feet above canyon floors, represent the culmination of that long cultural evolution. They provided protection, oversight of farmland, and a communal home for generations. And yet, as with so many ancient sites, the straightforward explanations only account for part of the story. Why build so high in places that seem almost perilous to reach? Why pour so much labor into carving communities into the sheer faces of cliffs? Practical interpretations are plentiful: defense against outside threats, climate adaptation, or simply taking advantage of natural shelters. Each theory holds weight, each seems reasonable, but none feels entirely complete. Walking through a site like Mesa Verde or the dwellings of the Four Corners region, one cannot help but feel that the placement itself held deeper meaning, perhaps spiritual, perhaps ceremonial, or perhaps something even more elusive. The structures are not random. Their arrangement, their orientation, and their proximity to natural features suggest a relationship between community and landscape far more nuanced than mere survival. In circular kivas, underground ceremonial chambers, ventilation shafts and fire pits reflect ritual practices tied to origin stories, communal gatherings, and cosmology. The sipapu, a small hole in the floor symbolizing the portal through which ancestors emerged into this world, quietly hints at a worldview steeped in symbolism and myth. Above these chambers, sight lines align with celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, and the long cycles of the moon. Such details confirm a people deeply attuned to the sky. But then there are the questions that slip through the archaeological record, details that spark wonder as much as they do debate. Petroglyphs carved into canyon walls sometimes depict patterns that resemble astronomical objects or events. Spiral motifs may mark solstices. Star clusters appear in simplified form. At one site, a carved symbol is thought by some to represent a supernova observed in 1054 CE. These interpretations remain contested, but the possibility lingers that the cliff dwellers observed, recorded, and perhaps ritualized phenomena far beyond their daily survival. And then, of course, lies the most enduring mystery: the sudden, widespread departure. Around the end of the 13th century, the cliff dwellings were abandoned. Entire communities left behind their homes, their storage rooms, their ceremonial sites. For reasons still debated, the people dispersed south and east, merging into what would become the cultures of the modern Pueblo tribes. Mainstream explanations center on environmental changes: prolonged drought, failing crops, limited resources, or increased competition among neighboring groups. These factors certainly played a role. Tree ring data supports evidence of severe droughts. Archaeological layers show shifts in agriculture and settlement patterns. And yet, the departure feels abrupt. Too abrupt, some argue, for environmental stress alone. Could social upheaval have contributed? Conflict? Spiritual transformation? A shift in cultural identity? Each possibility opens a different perspective on the same unanswered question. More speculative ideas drift at the edges of the conversation, introduced not as conclusions, but as curiosities. Some suggest large-scale migrations were part of a prophesied cycle, a ritual rather than an emergency. Others wonder whether astronomical events, comet sightings, or unexplained phenomena might have influenced communal decision-making. Still others look to oral traditions, interpreting symbols and stories through lenses that blend history with metaphor, myth with memory. Though such theories stretch beyond the boundaries of traditional archaeology, they reflect something universal: humanity's instinct to seek meaning in the unexplained. Even the architecture itself invites interpretation. Some features seem purely practical: storage niches, defensive sightlines, efficient ventilation. Others feel ceremonial in purpose. And some, particularly high, inaccessible alcoves, raise the question: were these spaces meant for daily living or for something more specialized? Observation, ritual, protection of knowledge, or objects now lost? In the quiet of these ruins, it is easy to imagine generations climbing hand and toe trails to their elevated homes, tending crops in the valley floor below, and watching the night sky with a familiarity that we, in our modern electric world, have almost forgotten. It is equally easy to imagine the moment of decision, the day when these communities began their long departure, leaving behind the stones that still hold their absence. As we follow the faint traces of their lives, walls shaped by careful hands, soot blackening the ceilings, potsherds scattered in the dust, we are left with fragments, evidence, possibilities, but no definitive answer. Why here? Why so high? Why leave? Perhaps the most compelling truth is the one we cannot yet access: that these cliff dwellings represent a story still unfolding, waiting for connection, interpretation, or discovery. A reminder that even places long studied can hold meanings we have yet to perceive. And so we continue onward, deeper into the landscape of mystery, wondering what other questions these ancient walls might still be asking of us.